Tonight, it is Super Tuesday in Texas. Political parties are picking their candidates. They are building a ballot for November, and a lot is on the line. Right now, we are just a few moments away from getting the very first results of the night here in the studio. Nationally, we are watching to see what happens in this race and how Texas is going to influence it. But there's still so much to talk about here in the Lone Star State. Who will challenge Ted Cruz this fall? 9 Democrats running for U.S. Senate. We will soon see which 2 go to a runoff. Lots of open seats in Congress. In Dallas, 1 Democrat will succeed Congressman Colin Allred. In Fort Worth, Republicans are running to replace Congresswoman Kay Granger. And Michael Burgess' seat is up for grabs in Denton County. A rare race in the state Senate. Incumbent Vinton Jones defending his office against a fellow Democrat, State Rep Victoria Niave Criado. Will Attorney General Ken Paxton get revenge against fellow Republicans tonight? How influential will millions of dollars be from the far right? And will tonight put Texas any closer to approving school vouchers? We have Cruz with candidates all across the state. We have race results and expert analysis. Super Tuesday in Texas begins right now on WFAA. Let's start here with Jason Wheeler on the big board. You're going to be the busiest man in here tonight, probably. Tell us what you'll be doing tonight.
I'm going to be watching all the races. This is the cleanest the board gets all night. Everybody's at 0 right now. We'll get those first results in from early voting coming up in about 15 minutes or so. We're watching, of course, both of the sides of the presidential primary. Also, the big Senate race here. Who's going to be taking on Ted Cruz come November? And, of course, all of these different House districts that are Republican on Republican. A lot of incumbents in the crossfire with Governor Abbott and with Attorney General Paxton wanting to take them out for different reasons. We're watching those grudge matches tonight.
You can see county by county results as they come in tonight?
Absolutely. We're going to be doing all 254 of them.
And this will be where we'll spend a lot of time tonight, but also putting some of these numbers in context. It's what the next part of the studio is for, so let's head over there right now. We have a number of analysts who volunteer their time, come in and help put the headlines in context here. Domingo Garcia is the national president of LULAC. Bernadine Steptoe's political producer at WFAA in Dallas. And Bud Kennedy is a columnist with the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. Wade Emmert, of course, is a Dallas attorney and the former chair of the Dallas County Republican Party. Before we get to you guys, though, let's start with Jobin Paniker. He is in Collin County in Allen tonight. And Jobin, it looks like there are some long lines behind you.
Well, Jason, Super Tuesday, super long lines here in Allen. This is one of the busiest polling locations in Collin County. So this line, if I can paint a picture for you, the court building is about 50 yards that way. That line stretches from there 50 yards, makes its way all the way around, and comes all the way around this way. Again, this is one of the busiest spots here in Collin County. A vast majority of the candidates you see on the election signs here in Collin County were poll greeting here this morning, starting at around 7 o'clock this morning. I had a chance to talk with the elections administrator, Bruce Sherbet. He tells me 40% of the total vote will come from tonight. 60% obviously came through that early election voting. Now, Collin County has a really neat map that I want to show you and sort of speaks to how busy these polling locations are. I'm going to show you at around 5 o'clock, there were 2 spots. There were 2 spots that had wait times of about 60 minutes or more. And right now, there are now 13 spots, 13 polling locations in Collin County with a wait time of over 60 minutes. I had a chance to talk to a man who joined the line, and he was right here at the apex of this corner, and from there it was about a 1-hour wait. We anticipate if it's coming all the way this way, it's going to be at least an hour and a half. And again, the rule is if you're in line by 7 o'clock, you will be able to vote. It's just you're going to have to be waiting for just a little bit. Jason, back to you.
Jobin, thanks for that. An hour and a half line, and polls close in about 10 minutes or so. We should start getting those early results in. Let's start with what we saw from Jobin there. And Wade, your thoughts about this. Collin County is a Republican county. A lot of Republican races up there. This is not a surprise.
Not a surprise. And Collin County is the epicenter of the proxy war between Governor Abbott and Ken Paxton and the impeachment versus school vouchers vote. And so it's not surprising that there's a huge turnout in that area.
But what do you think? Who does this help? incumbents, challengers?
A larger turnout is going to help the incumbents. It's going to help the business conservatives, because people are coming out because they believe there's some threat to the person who's been in office for a long time. Also, some of these voters may be coming out to cast votes for Nikki Haley. They may be voters who may or may not be regular Republican voters. That's going to help women down the ballot on the Republican primary.
Bernadine?
Well, what is most amazing is he's saying that this early vote will be 60% of the voting.
Of the total vote.
Of the total vote. So what we see coming out is going to set the stage as to who will probably win these races.
Domingo, from a Democratic point of view here, I mean, there's Republicans show up in the state to go vote. Democrats don't always actually show up and go vote. But when you see this, what does it say about November?
Well, I can tell you right now, almost every race in Collin County, whether you're running for constable or state rep, the Republican primary is it. Whoever wins the primary is going to be the general election winner. Same thing happens in South Texas. There's lines in South Texas all across there, primarily Democrat. But definitely you're seeing enthusiasm gap, and Republicans are much more motivated right now.
Well, let's talk about the biggest race in the state right now, and that is the Democratic race for U.S. Senate. And Colin Allred and Roland Gutierrez are the two leading candidates in that race, though there are 7 others in that race as well. And, you know, Colin Allred has been working for almost a year now, Domingo, to get his name out, to raise his name ID outside of this area, and you know, let people know who he is. But I think one of the challenges we saw in 2018 and in 2022 was that Hispanic surnames do a lot better in the Valley. That would help Roland Gutierrez, I presume, right?
I saw some numbers that the Democratic Party chairman sent me yesterday. All the precincts, all the counties with the highest turnout in the Democratic primary, from Laredo to Brownsville. And all the rest, including Dallas, Harris County, Austin, San Antonio, very low, moderate turnout. We're expecting only 3 or 4% of the Democratic primary to vote in this election. So I think that's going to help Roland Gutierrez, is running sort of a grassroots campaign, getting Stonewall Democrats, progressive Democrats, while Colin has tried to take kind of a moderate road, and he spent over $5 million on TV. You couldn't miss a commercial. Well, I haven't been out there, but it's going to be interesting. I think there's going to be a runoff in this election.
You think so? All right.
Yeah.
Let's go to the reporters in this race. We have reporters with all the major candidates in the race here. Teresa Woodard is in Dallas with the Colin Allred campaign. Morgan Young tonight is in San Antonio with the Roland Gutierrez campaign. And of course, Matt Howerton is watching what happens from the Cruz camp. And Matt, we'll get to you in a moment, but the Cruz camp is already launching ads against Teresa's candidate. She is covering Colin Allred. Teresa, we're still waiting for polls to close here. What's it like, though, there right now?
Well, we are at Colin Allred's watch party, which is in the Design District in Dallas, just north of downtown. And it's kind of chaotic right now because you have a lot of reporters and news crews who are trying to get set up and trying to find their spot for where they will be broadcasting live all night. We've heard a few bike checks behind me. But from the campaign standpoint, I think they feel comfortable. We saw that poll from UT within the last few weeks that showed Colin Allred polling at 52%. Of course, if that happens, that would mean he doesn't face a runoff tonight. But the campaign knows that anything is possible. There are 9 people running for this race. You have some recognizable names like Colin Allred, who of course has name recognition in North Texas because he's been a congressman here since 2018. This is, though, his first statewide race. So as you guys were just talking about, what are the chances that folks down along the border know Colin Allred's name? Do they know his name in West Texas? And of course, you have Roland Gutierrez, who does have more name recognition in South Texas and particularly in San Antonio. But when you look at a field of 9 candidates, it is hard to get more than 50% of the vote. That's, of course, what it takes in Texas. The campaign told me today they are feeling good, but they are prepared for whatever happens. And so I don't think that they are ready to declare that this won't go to a runoff. I went back and watched an interview that you, Jason, did with Colin Allred on Inside Texas Politics just a few weeks ago. And you asked him that specific question, is this going to go to a runoff? And, he wasn't ready to answer it one way or the other, of course. We know tonight that Colin Allred is with his family. I'm told that is his election day tradition, to spend the day with his family. He did make it out to one polling place late this afternoon. That was in the Hamilton Park neighborhood of Dallas, where he did say hello to a couple of voters. But tonight I know he's with his family. That is where he wants to be. And until we know how this is going, we don't expect to hear from him or see him here at Rodeo Goat in the Design District in Dallas. Jason?
Teresa, thanks for that. They're obviously trying to measure expectations. And we saw walking behind you there, the Dallas County judge, prominent Democrat, Clay Jenkins there, which clearly shows a lot of Democrats with you tonight. Morgan, let's let's go to the Valley here, or San Antonio, not the Valley, but, Domingo Garcia just a moment ago was talking about all the support Democrats have down in the Valley and how historically they have voted for candidates with Hispanic surnames. How excited or confident is Gutierrez tonight?
Well, Jason, I think for State Senator Roland Gutierrez, the word here is confidence. I mean, when you talk about, the Hispanic vote, that's something he has been really, really adamant about, being really confident in his ability to reach those voters. His state Senate district touches 17 counties, and a number of those communities are communities along the border, and that district is largely Hispanic. Teresa just mentioned the UT Austin poll that came out not too long ago that showed Colin Allred pulling ahead of this with no runoff. Well, I actually got to speak to State Senator Gutierrez a little more than a week ago, shortly after that poll came out. When I tell you, he really dismissed the results of that. He said he is confident that this will lead to a runoff. And, he hasn't had too harsh of words for his opponent in Colin Allred, but he has said, hey, look, he says he is what Texas needs. He's been really critical of Allred's use of the word bipartisanship. He says in Texas right now, he doesn't believe that that's real. He says that Texas is broken, and he says that he is the man for the job. So when you ask about confidence, he has confidence. When I asked him, about his ability, if he wanted to, change anything about his campaign kind of coming up to today with those poll results coming out, he said no. He's going to stand on everything he said. He's going to stand on the issues he's been standing on. And of course, what we know, he's been pushing for a number of issues. The biggest one are those red flag gun laws. We do know he was the most outspoken politician in our state, really, following the tragedy in Uvalde. When I spoke to him a little more than a week ago, he said the day before he had been with those affected families. He has walked with them this entire time. And that's really been a huge issue that he has stood on throughout his entire campaign. When we sat down with him right after he announced that he was going to run for the Senate seat, we were the first news outlet to speak with him. That was the big issue he spent a lot of his interview talking about. So he's been really consistent with that, really confident with that. Very similar to what Teresa said, our watch party situation is full of reporters starting to fill up with energy. But when I've spoken to his campaign, that confidence, the confidence in the issues, and his ability to reach the Hispanic voters and just anyone who wants to see big change in Texas has been consistent, and he's expecting that runoff. Jason?
All right, Morgan and Teresa, thanks for that. One of these two candidates likely will be, well, not likely, will be the nominee to run against Ted Cruz. Matt Howerton, you're watching the Cruz campaign. What comes from them? And you and I were speaking about a half hour ago. The Cruz campaign, or at least a PAC for the Cruz campaign, has already launched attack ads against Colin Allred.
Yeah, there is no watch party tonight for me, Jason. Cruz is in Washington, D.C., watching the results come in there. He was in the Panhandle yesterday, surveying the damage that was done by all of those wildfires. So, yeah, he can go on the offensive right now because he really doesn't have any big opponent to beat tonight. And in that ad, they target Colin Allred. It just launched hours ago before polls even began to close, and it's over a 1-minute long ad. It's on the web. It's from a pro-Cruz PAC, and it calls Allred the most radical recruit for the Democrats, that he's too radical for Texas on a number of issues, including crime, immigration, health care, abortion, and education. And Cruz, he's been in office since 2012. He stood the test of time here in Texas, very close to losing office there in 2018 when he went up against Beto O'Rourke. Very close race that took less than 3% of the vote for Cruz to win. But I think his campaign is probably trying to make that the exception and not the rule for his candidacy right now here for Senate. And I think his campaign is going to ramp up once he finds out who his Democratic challenger in November actually is. We're supposed to be hearing from his campaign later tonight, but as you said, there's already folks on his side, Republican strategists, who think Colin Allred is going to win that Democratic challenger spot for the general election in November. And that ad is already on the web, attacking him for a number of things that we mentioned earlier tonight. And Cruz, like we said, will have his statement when we do actually find out if this is going to be a runoff or if it's going to be Colin Allred or Roland Gutierrez in this situation. We also want to talk a little bit about Cruz's approval ratings. In 2018, they were lower than they are actually now, according to the University of Texas at Austin. And Cruz was kind of facing a hard battle. He ran for president in 2016, and a lot of people knew he had maybe higher ambitions in the state of Texas. Maybe that didn't settle with voters very well. And then obviously in 2018, he had to deal with all that flack that came from obviously the GOP convention, not supporting Trump right away. That might have irked wrong with voters too. Independents might not have liked him because Donald Trump was in office. That's all changed now. And he's obviously grabbing onto hot political issues at the moment, including the border. We saw President Biden there last week with President Trump. So it'll be interesting to see how he goes on the offensive from here, and if any Democrats will try and meet him in the middle. Jason?
Matt, this is a red-hot race tonight. It's going to be one in November as well. We're going to get back to you, Matt, Morgan, and Teresa as the night goes on here. But let's go back to our analysts tonight. The polls just closed about 17 seconds ago. So we have some anticipation, I guess, as we await these early voting numbers. These are going to be coming in the next 10 minutes or so. 6 or 7 minutes is usually how long it takes for a lot of the counties to generate this. And we're going to be taking a look at those as they come in. But let's go around the table here. And Wade, we'll start with you about the race or the races you are watching tonight.
The speaker's race. Well, it's not the speaker's race, but it's a race involving the speaker, Dade Phelan. It'll be interesting to see if the candidate supported by Paxton can unseat Phelan. He was attacked by Paxton. He was attacked by Lieutenant Governor. The Governor Greg Abbott didn't endorse him, hadn't really said anything publicly about him. It's almost as if Dade is out there on his own. Rick Perry stumped for him last week. So we'll see if that's enough to help him carry the day. But I think that is probably the bellwether election tonight from the state perspective.
I think a lot of people probably agree with you on that, especially statewide. But Tanya Iser is in Beaumont tonight. We'll be checking in with her a little later. Bud, what races are you watching?
Well, I think we have to look at these House races here where you have somebody who voted against vouchers, who is opposed in some cases by Governor Abbott. And then you also have candidates like the incumbent Morgan Meyer in Dallas, who antagonized Lieutenant Governor, as Lieutenant Governor supporting Warnock against him. So you look at all the House races. The first ones I'd say the incumbent most in danger of losing is Glenn Rogers from Grayford, west of Weatherford. He's up against Mike Olcott. This is the second time that Olcott's run. That's probably the most endangered incumbent in Texas. And Olcott has actually given money to people running against Abbott before, but this time Abbott's on his side for vouchers.
Let's go to some new numbers we have in right now. The first numbers of the night, I believe, and this is for House District 26, a congressional seat. This one replaces, this person will replace Michael Burgess, representing Tarrant, Denton counties, and out to Decatur as well. Brandon Gill leads this. This is 27% of the precincts reporting. This is a little more than a quarter of them reporting right now. Brandon Gill way out in front of Scott Army, the son of the former Congressman Dick Army, and John Huffman, who is the mayor of Southlake. Those are huge numbers right there, Bernadine, I think. Absolutely, and I don't think that we were looking at John Huffman as being in number 3 so far for the early vote. Yeah. We were looking at John Huffman being primarily in second place. So those numbers are coming out somewhat surprising as well. But whatever happens in early voting will probably dictate what happens for the entire primary. We have some more new numbers here. Let's take a look at these as they come in as well. This is the Republican race for president in the state, kind of going the way polls were talking about over the last few weeks. Donald Trump with 73% of the vote so far. Just a few precincts reporting here, 3% so far. Nikki Haley at 21%. I believe the last poll from the University of Houston Hobby School of Public Affairs showed Trump with 80% support, Nikki Haley at 20% support. We have seen Trump underperform so far in this election cycle, Bud.
Yeah, I think that's what Haley keeps hanging on for, that Haley keeps getting a few more points than the polls say she'll get. In this case, she's only doing a point or two better, but she's not gaining much ground. She's just outperforming what the polls show, so she keeps just hanging on by a fingernail. Domingo, I was watching a news article earlier today, and it talked about Haley supporters nationwide. More than half of them say they're not going to vote for the Republican nominee if it is not Nikki Haley. That's a problem for Trump and likely helping Democrats.
Right now, 1 out of every 4 Republican voters is saying we're not voting for Trump. If only half of those vote for Biden or stay home, then Trump could be in trouble. Not across the country, as you've seen in other states. I mean, she carried D.C., but the fact that 1 out of every 4 Republicans is saying we're not voting for Trump because the criminal charges, the scandals, the drama, I think that is going to be a problem for Trump coalescing his forces for the November election, because I don't think he crosses over very much with independents and Democrats.
Yeah, it's a significant problem. Wait,
Well,
did you want to?
I mean, the national polls show that Trump is leading Biden by 4 points. So, I mean, I don't know who these Republicans are that say they're not going to vote for him, but enough people are to let him win the election. So look, people are engaged in a primary. They're focused on Nikki Haley. When the time comes, they'll support Trump instead of staying home. I don't think the same could be said for Biden supporters who have shown a lackluster amount of excitement for him. Most people say he shouldn't be running; he's too old. So,
do you not agree with, or do you not believe that those never Trumpers exist?
I absolutely believe there are never Trumpers exist.
But you think they'll end up showing up to the polls when it comes down to it?
I think there are more people that will vote for Trump, as the polls indicate, then will vote for Biden. And at the end of the day, that's all that matters.
We do have some more numbers coming in now, 5 minutes after polls closed. This is the race to replace Colin Allred, House District number 32, 1% reporting here. Julie Johnson is a state rep. She is a Democrat running for this seat. She is way out early here, but look, we just have a few hundred votes here. Brian Williams, trauma surgeon, Dr. Brian Williams, second place there with 22%, Jan McDowell with 12%.
We're just watching here to see if there's a runoff in this race.
Exactly, and these numbers are too small to really determine anything, aren't they, Bud?
Well, and isn't that race up in the north, up near Collin County,
This
where
it
the
stretches,
numbers have not come in?
It stretches north from
North and
Dallas
east.
to the yes, exactly. It's Colin Allred's district.
Yeah.
We have 3 open congressional seats up tonight, and the question in all 3 is there a runoff? If so, who's in it? That 26 race in Denton County, might not be a runoff. Certainly, District 12 in Tarrant County probably won't be a runoff. I'll be surprised it is. This one probably will.
Bernadine?
Well, I think that every candidate is wondering if I'm going to be in that runoff, if there is a runoff, because as the numbers are showing, there could be a runoff in most of them. And I'm just waiting to see the numbers for the U.S. Senate race, to see those numbers more, because that's where my interest is, because that will be the competitive race for the November.
Well, let's go to some new numbers here. This is for the United States Senate, the Republican side, I believe, and this is, of course, no surprise here.
No surprise.
Ted Cruz with 85% of the vote.
Yeah.
I don't know Red Gibson, but he's got 8% of the vote here, Wade.
Well, that's it. He must have a big family, because that's about the only people that voted for him, I bet.
So this is the early votes reporting here, but this is not a surprise at all.
No,
I guess I'm surprised the number's not higher for Ted Cruz at the end of the day.
Well, I mean, there'll be people that vote for somebody else just because they don't like Ted Cruz.
Yeah.
Yeah. So somebody once told me that you could put a dog on the ballot and he'll get 20% of the vote. So I don't think it matters. I mean, anybody's going to have some detractors.
When it comes down to it, Domingo, can a Democrat beat Ted Cruz? It doesn't seem to be the same momentum as we saw in 2018.
Cancun Cruz is going to be a big topic in November. And the polls that have come out have shown both Gutierrez and Colin Allred neck and neck with Ted Cruz. And we saw him only win by 2 points against Beto O'Rourke, who was kind of a flawed candidate in the sense of, I'm going to take your guns away, I'm going to take your AR-15, which doesn't play well in Texas. I don't think you're going to have that with Colin Allred and to a certain extent Roland Gutierrez. So I think he's going to have a tough fight. And the numbers and the demographics of Texas continue to change. And we have another 400,000 voters that were not on the rolls just when Ted Cruz ran last time.
Bernadine, what do you think?
Oh, he's definitely watching this race.
But can a Democrat defeat Cruz in November?
Well, Jason, that's what we're talking about.
And also, you don't want to commit yet, do you?
Well, but let's wait until the election, the primary is over. And I say that because we need to look at how the grassroots campaigns of both the top candidates are, to see how they can motivate those voters to come back. Now, this is a Republican state, but you also have a somewhat flawed candidate in Ted Cruz. So, and I know you mentioned earlier about Beto, but Cruz, if he's watching the race, which I'm sure he is, he understands. He understands that he's going to have a very, very competitive race.
Wade Emmer talked a moment ago about the House Speaker, Dade Phelan. He's running for re-election. People don't realize the House Speaker is also an actual representative, but he represents part of Jefferson County and points north there in Beaumont, Nederland, on the far southeast part of Texas. Tanya Iser is there in Beaumont. And Tanya, you actually spoke to the House Speaker a little earlier today.
Yeah, Jason, actually, we've spoken to him multiple times today. Actually, we've moved locations. We're now in Vidor, Texas. Dade Phelan was here up until about 15 minutes ago. He seems relatively confident that things are going to go his way, but he did tell me he is watching closely these races involving these House members throughout the state, and obviously watching his own race. Now, as Speaker, he has pushed through many conservative priorities, including passing one of the strictest abortion laws in the nation. But no matter his conservative record, the Republican power brokers, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, Attorney General Ken Paxton, former President Donald Trump, they've all lined up against him and in support of his opponent, David Covey. And that's largely because of Phelan's support of the impeachment of Ken Paxton. And even last month, the state's GOP executive committee came out and they censored Dade Phelan over his support of the impeachment and also over his support of his appointment of Democrats as committee chairs in the House. Now, Covey told me, when I also talked to Covey earlier today, and he told me that Dade Phelan has betrayed Republican principles and that he represented America first. And I asked him, I said, what does that mean? And so this is what he had to say, and this is also Dade Phelan's response.
To me, that means someone who supports what President Trump supports. Closing the border, it means putting Americans first. It means election integrity. It means that we care about the people that are in this country.
You've got some powerful opponents. Dan Patrick, Ken Paxton, Republican Executive Committee here in Texas. What do you say to them?
I say, come spend a day down here in Southeast Texas and understand, our challenges and what we need to thrive here in Southeast Texas. Most of them couldn't find this community on a map. I gave them 10 tries. So I would just tell those outsiders, Southeast Texas is not for sale.
And by outsiders, Dade Phelan was responding to those West Texas billionaires that have bankrolled his opponent and many of the House incumbents that are being opposed by other Republicans. And now there is no doubt that the outcome of this race is going to be a referendum. It's going to be a referendum on whether or not you can stand up to the powers that be and still hold your job.
Great stuff, Tanya. Great information. Thanks for that. But every Republican I'm talking to says that Phelan wins this race. The question is, by what margin?
And every Republican I'm talking to says it's probably going to a runoff. So we'll see where that goes by the end of the night. Dade Phelan has a little bit of a disadvantage. The district is based in Orange. He's from Beaumont. Covey's from Orange. He has the Orange County base. It's a structurally not that easy of a race for Phelan. He's got the business support, but Covey is more in touch. It's an arch conservative district. Covey is closer to the voters. The question is how much Dade Phelan, how well he's done his job of staying in touch with the people in his district.
Let's ask a Republican right here. What do you think?
Yeah, if Dade Phelan goes to a runoff, he's in trouble.
Do you think it goes to a runoff?
I actually don't think it does go to a runoff. I know David Covey. I like him. But when Dade takes the job as Speaker, you realize you're going to take some arrows for the Republican Party and the Republicans in the House through trying to represent the entire body rather than just one constituency. And so this is part of being Speaker, and it's no wonder that he's taking flack for the impeachment vote, but it's more than that. It's actually for the vouchers, it's for the property tax reform, it's for a lot of things. Yeah. And so he's carrying the water for a lot of House members and taking the arrows. And
this is why this race is one of our biggest races tonight. We've been talking about results over the last 13, 14 minutes here or so, but let's go to Jobin Paniker in Allen. And Jobin, lines still are going there. Is it another hour or so? Is that how long they're telling you?
Yeah, I think the estimation right now is about an hour and a half. It's no hidden secret that here in Collin County, we have a population boom. Well, this is how it manifests. And I know it's a little dark. We're in a really dark parking lot. We are at the Allen Municipal Court location. This is one of the busiest polling locations in Collin County, one of 13 polling locations currently with a wait time of at least an hour. So if I can jump into the shot so you can see, this line goes about 50 yards that way, works its way all the way around. And at the very end of the line, you have an Allen police officer, an elections administrator, turning people away, letting them know they have passed the cutoff point. And we've seen about 10, 12 people have to get turned away. The wait from here is about an hour and a half. When we got here at about 5 o'clock, it was maybe 45 minutes to 60 minutes, and now here we are, an hour and a half. Some people got to this apex right here at this corner, and it took them about 45 minutes. So it's going to be a relatively long night for elections people here and the people waiting at the very last part of this line.
Wow, it's going to be a long night for you there. Jobin Puneker in Allen tonight with what looks like people might be voting up until 8:45 tonight, according to that line he saw there. Let's go to some new numbers we have. This is Congressional District number 26. This is 27% of the precincts reporting. I believe we saw these numbers a little earlier. Brandon Gill way out front. Of course, Brandon Gill has been spending a lot of money to get his name out, and there have been a lot of people attacking him, spending the same amount of money. Bud, this is territory that you cover.
Well, this is Michael Burgess' district, but Brandon Gill has so much name ID right away in this district because he is the son-in-law of Dinesh D'Souza. He's been on all the Trump connections. He has all the Trump folks behind him, and so right away there was a tremendous amount of mail plowed in. The name ID was fast. Scott Army ran 20 years ago when Michael Burgess was elected. Scott Army was his opponent. He was county judge 20 years ago, but he hasn't been active in Republican politics since then. Brandon Gill was able to walk in. He's a newcomer. He's 30-ish, but he's able to walk in with a tremendous amount of national support. All these elections used to be local elections. Now they're all nationalized elections. Yeah. It's all about how much you're on national TV, how many national names you bring in.
That's where the Republican base is right now, too. That's a good point, Bud. Cole Sullivan tonight is with the Brandon Gill campaign. I believe he's at the Texas Motor Speedway. Cole?
And I'll tell you, if you'll permit me a pun here, Brandon Gill's campaign looks like they're lapping everyone here at the Texas Motor Speedway tonight. The early results are what they were looking at. We've gotten some of those already, and they show Gill may avoid the runoff in this race, which is notable because there are 11 candidates running for the Republican nomination here, including Scott Army, that you were just talking about. The whole point was to see who the top two would be, or if in any candidate's wildest dreams, they might exceed that 50% threshold. And some of those early numbers look like Brandon Gill is exceeding that threshold. The campaign tells me tonight that they were looking at the early vote in Denton County specifically, and they said whatever that early vote number is in Denton County specifically, some of those early results, they expect the final results for the night to be within a few percentage points, 3 to 5 percentage points of that. And at my last check, the early results that we've gotten so far from Denton show Gill at 57% in this race, which will, if their theory holds, will mean that he will avoid a runoff in this race if they're looking at the math across the districts, across the counties in this district. You talked about the money in this race. There has been so much of it, millions of dollars spent, mostly on Brandon Gill, for and against. And for a relative newcomer to the district, the campaign thinks that actually may have helped. His name was out just so much over traditional over-the-air waves, ads that you've seen in support of him or tearing him down. In this district with 11 candidates, or this race with 11 candidates, that may have set him apart. If these numbers continue tonight, they're going to be having a very good night here at the Texas Motor Speedway.
Cole, we'll connect with you again here shortly. Let's go to some new numbers we have tonight. We have a number of races with new results coming in to us here. This is House District number 12. This is Craig Goldman running for this seat. This is to replace Kay Granger in Congress. Almost half of the precincts reporting. This is the early vote, I presume. And Craig Goldman, a Republican state representative from Fort Worth, ahead with 54% of the vote. Craig clearly had a lot more money. He had more organization. And John O'Shea with 28%. Honestly, Bud, I'm going to ask you about this one. Let's pause back on that race there just for a moment before we fly ahead here, because we're going to take some of these apart. I'm surprised that Goldman's not any higher than he is.
Well, John O'Shea got in the race to run against Kay Granger and did not get much traction. He's done a little bit better. He had Paxton campaigning for him from the very beginning. He was one of Paxton's endorsees, but he's had some struggles late in the campaign. He really didn't raise much money. Goldman has a tremendous amount of money. but also it's a very conservative district in Northwest Tarrant and Parker. These numbers are a little bit better than what Goldman's doing in Tarrant. That tells me he may be doing even better in Parker than in Tarrant, which is good news for him.
Wow, and we had a little tease here of the next numbers. This is a state house seat in Rockwall County. This is House District number 33, Texas House. This is the early votes reporting. Justin Holland's the incumbent, and these numbers show that Katrina Pearson, a former Trump administration official, she is at 39% as well.
And this is one of those races that the incumbent voted to impeach Ken Paxton, Justin Holland, and Ken Paxton endorsed Katrina, and they are neck and neck.
Does Justin Holland hang on to that seat? The early voting could be half, if not more, of the total vote. What do you think, Wade?
I think it's, I mean, if it's tied in early voting, there's no way to know. I mean, it's all about who's going to turn out in Election Day. My instinct would say that would help the incumbent, but who knows? I mean, maybe Katrina Pearson's supporters were motivated to come out in early voting.
Wow.
Well, and keep in mind that Katrina Pearson was part of former President Trump's campaign and staff. So she really has, she probably benefits from Paxton, but she also benefits from herself.
Let's take a look at some more new numbers we have coming in here. This is another race, House District number 65. This is Kronda Timish, the incumbent, running against Mitch Little. A lot of campaign ads on TV for this one. This is the early vote here in this Republican race. Bud, did these surprise you at all?
This is a straight-up Abbott against Paxton in Dorsey's. Mitch Little was probably the best lawyer that Ken Paxton had in the impeachment trial, and certainly put on the best presentation. But Timish has a strong backing from Abbott. They put a lot of money into this campaign to keep Timish in the seat. I think most of what I've seen is that she'll keep that seat.
More new numbers here to talk about. This is House District number 61, Frederick Frazier. This is up there where Jobin Puneker is right now in Collin County, and Frederick Frazier running for re-election, running for a second term, I believe, Bud? Second or third term. And
dragging behind.
Carissa Richardson is ahead of him here with the early votes. Chuck Branch with 30%. This is a very tight race, and the thing to keep in mind here is that there's still an hour and a half left of voters standing in line to cast ballots. I'm not sure if this is exactly that House district, but man, this one could go.
Yeah, this is a unique race in that Paxton endorsed both challengers.
Wow.
So
whoever would win, he's fine with.
Whoever wasn't the incumbent.
My point is that if Freddie can hang in for a runoff, then he's probably in a good position.
Wow.
Because if the majority voted for well, or maybe he's not in a good position. Then maybe he's toast.
Yeah.
If the majority voted for someone else.
But then you have Abbott is on Frazier's.
Abbott's on Frazier's team, but yeah. I mean, he's in second place right now, so maybe not looking good for him.
Yeah, with all three of those candidates like that. Let's take a look at some more new numbers we have coming in here. This is House District number 67, also in Collin County. No surprise here. Jeff Leech is the incumbent. He is, one of the lieutenants, I would say, for House Speaker Dade Phelan, and Leech with 2/3 of the vote so far. This is the early vote reporting, easily winning this. Bernadine, that's not a surprise to me.
Well, no, and Jeff Leech has been very critical of Ken Paxton.
Right.
I mean, out of the jump gate, he's been very critical, so that's not surprising at all. It's just a notch up for Jeff Leech.
And that's another one that Wade was talking about, where Ken Paxton endorsed Darren, the challenger in the race, and I believe Governor Abbott is backing Jeff Leech in that race.
That is one of the races I thought Jeff would win. I didn't expect him to win by that much,
really?
At least in early voting. Jeff was one of the ones he was one of the lieutenants that pursued the impeachment, and if you remember, he gave the impassioned speech on the floor of the Senate and saying Ken Paxton's a friend. It hurts me to do this, but I have to do what's right. And so that type of personal plea I felt like would draw the most ire of Paxton's supporters, especially in Collin County area. And so I'm not surprised to see Jeff winning, but I thought Mice, who is a former member of the Allen City Council, would have done a little bit better than that.
Wow, more new numbers here to talk about. coming in here, and this is for House District 100. This is South Dallas, Buckner Terrace, and I think all the way over towards Mesquite. Vinton Jones is the incumbent, and he is ahead with more than half of the vote over Barbara Mallory Caraway. She is a former Dallas City Councilwoman, former state rep, and Sandra Crenshaw there is in third place. Is that surprising at all to you, Domingo?
No, Vinton Jones is the incumbent. He's pretty well liked in that district, and he should win without a runoff.
And he's running for his second term here.
Second term, and he's an African American. He's gay. He's very, very progressive and well liked in his district. So I expect him to win. It
looks like he is heading that way with the early vote here. So the numbers we've seen so far here, Bud. Frederick Frazier, I don't want to say it's surprising, but that is the race where someone's in trouble, along with Justin Holland and Rockwall.
Well, and some of these, the large numbers, people may be voting who don't know either of the candidates, and they're picking the simplest name or the familiar name.
And people do that.
People do that. They look at the easiest name. Jeff Leech has got an easier name than Darren Mize. Jeff Leech obviously is well known, but that may have given him another 5 points or so.
Wow.
Well, and also
you have so many people voting. You have people who are kind of guessing.
Yeah, and Jeff Leech is popular in his district.
Yeah. He's well known.
He's a representative who has worked the district, and he's been in the district. So that says a lot as well.
Let's go to some more new numbers that we have coming into us now. This is House District, U.S. House District 18. This is a congressional seat. Wow. I wasn't sure how this would go. This is in Houston, Harris County. Sheila Jackson Lee running for re-election. This is a fascinating one, I think, because Sheila walked away from the seat. She ran for mayor. She lost the mayoral race to John Whitmire. And on the last day to file, she runs back in and she files, hey, I do want my old seat back. But Amanda Edwards had already, gotten a lot of support at that point. She had also, gotten a lot of money. And this district has been redrawn. Still, though, Domingo, she is whooping Amanda here.
Sheila Jackson Lee is an institution in Houston, very strong in the African American community. That's an African American district, and she's the incumbent. Even though she got tarred a little bit in the Houston mayor's race, she lost, but she was able to come back, and I think she's going to win it without a runoff.
I'm surprised the numbers aren't any closer, Bernadine.
Well, no, because she is an institution, and while she was off running for mayor, Edwards was running for Congress, which made many people think that Edwards had a chance. But once Jackson Lee came back, she came back with full force.
She sure
did. Jason, she's got the power of this extensive get out the vote, early vote organization that she's used for years. So the fact that she has a big lead in early vote, she all just had to crank it up again.
Let's go to some more new numbers we have coming into us. This is House District 108. This is in Dallas, Highland Park, North Dallas, and this is a nail biter here. This is Morgan Meyer. This is another one of those proxy wars for the Republican Party of Texas. Morgan Meyer is the incumbent. He's had several really close races before. He's ahead 51% to Barry Wernick at 49%. This is the early vote coming in. Paxton, Dan Patrick, Governor Abbott, a number of others supported Barry Wernick. Morgan Meyer is supported by Dade Phelan. This one is really close, but Morgan is ahead there. Wade, are you surprised at those numbers at all?
A little bit. I mean, Morgan, I think, is kind of tailor-made for that district. Yeah. He's got the look, he's got the sensibility. I think it's going to be a tough race, whoever wins. That district, it leans Republican, but it's not solid Republican. He squeaked by the last few elections, so I think you need the right type of Republican to win that district. I'm not sure Barry Wernick is that Republican. It reminds me of what happened when Jason Villalba got beat in the primary by Lisa Libby Ryan, much more farther right candidate, but could never win the district. And so if Barry Wernick wins, I think that district is very much in play for Democrats as a state they might be able to pick up.
And there are two Democrats running for that seat, Domingo.
There's only 2 Republican state representatives left in Dallas County, and Morgan Meyer is one of them, and he's on the target list of the Democrats. He's only won by 1 or 2 points in the November election, and if you get a right-winger, then a lot of those women that are moderate conservatives, I think they're going to vote for the Democrat.
More new numbers here. Let's show you these before we go. Cut away for a moment here. House District number 91. This is in Fort Worth. Stephanie Click, the incumbent. Early votes here show that she is just below the 50% that she needs to avoid a runoff. David Lowe at 45%. Still early here. If there are a lot of folks lined up, that number could obviously change for either candidate. But Stephanie Click is running for re-election again. She's, of course, the Republican who introduced and got passed medical marijuana in the state. She's had a number of different successes on the conservative side for that. We're going to take a quick break here on the stream. Don't turn it off. Don't X us out at all. We're going to cut away for a moment so we can use our studio for a TV cut-in, essentially, and we're going to break into ABC programming with an update for our TV audience. Chris and Cynthia, we'll have that in just a moment.
And we hope you're enjoying your show. We are not interrupting it, but using the commercial break to give you a look at the local results just rolling in. I'm Cynthia Seguirre.
And I'm Chris Lawrence. The polls closed at 7 p.m., but with the lines out the door in some locations, voters are still casting ballots right now.
In Collin County, where we are following some important races, including the Texas House race for District 67, lines have been very long at some polling locations. Tiffany Liu joins us live from Allen City Hall right now, where the lines have stretched down the street for hours. How's it looking right now, Tiff?
Yeah, well, Chris and Izzy, this line could be another 1 to 2 hour wait. You know, we're here at the Allen Municipal Court building. I just want to show you what's going on behind me. If you can see behind this car here, the line actually wraps around the corner of this building. It's gotten shorter actually since I've been here. But one thing is that there is a police officer who's standing at the end of the line, and he marks the end of the line, which means anybody coming after that cannot vote. Everybody who's here was here by 7 o'clock. Everyone in line, according to the Collin County Elections Administrator, gets in line by 7, gets to vote. Now, I just got off the phone with him as well, Bruce, the Collin County Elections Administrator, and he tells me that 54,076 people have voted so far in person today. There's probably going to be several hundred more by the end of the night. And this means there's going to be about an 18.9% voter turnout here in Collin County. That's about average for the primary elections. He predicted last week that it would be about 60% people early voting, 40% people voting today on Super Tuesday, and it seems like those are the numbers that it's going to come out to be. But again, these lines are long here, but all these people standing here in line once again will be able to vote because they were in that line by 7 o'clock. Chris, Izzy, let's send it back to you.
All right, thank you, Tiffany. Actually pretty encouraging to see so many people determined to vote. Here's a live look at what's happening in Dallas and Tarrant County. Tonight, poll workers will be tallying all the votes cast early, and WFAA is constantly updating those results as they come in.
Let's bring in our political team for a deeper analysis on the results just starting to come in.
Yeah, Jason Wheeler analyzing some of the early numbers. What are you seeing so far?
Well, we'll start with the presidential race, Chris and Izzy. On the Democratic side, this isn't any surprise at all. It's not really a truly contested primary. You see President Biden running away with it there. On the Republican side, Donald Trump pulling in close to 75%. That's at the lower end of what most polls have said that he would do. Nikki Haley pulling in about 20.6%, and uncommitted coming in third place right now with 16,000 votes. This is with just a portion of the early vote counted. For Senator, we're watching, who's doing well here. We expected these two names to be at the top. I don't think we expected Colin Allred maybe to have this big of a chunk of the vote. Again, though, this is just a portion of the early vote that we're looking at right now as to who might be taking on Senator Cruz come this fall. But a lot of candidates in this, 9 candidates. And so this is likely to go to a runoff unless this number stays somewhat close to where it is right now. Chris, Izzy?
All right, thank you very much, Jason. A lot to look for tonight. We're going to send you back to the new episode of Will Trent. Don't worry, you didn't miss any of it.
And our election coverage continues. You can watch more in-depth analysis right now on WFAA+. See you soon.
All right, welcome back to our live coverage of Super Tuesday in Texas. We have numbers tonight, we have analysis, we have Cruz with candidates all across the state. This is the only place in Texas that's dedicating this many resources to trying to cover the races that are important to you tonight. We have a number of folks here with us tonight. Wade Emmert is with us from the formerly of the Dallas County Republican Party. Bud Kennedy is a columnist at the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. Bernadine Steptoe, political producer at WFAA in Dallas. And Domingo Garcia, looking at the latest results there on his phone, is the national president of LULAC. But before we get into the analysis, let's talk about some of the latest numbers. And Jason Wheeler is over on the big board with that. Jason?
Yeah, I guess we'll start with the presidential contest because this is a presidential election year. A lot of people turning out to the polls. We always see bigger numbers in these years. This is what we have so far in the Republican side of things, and we're pulling this data from the Associated Press. They have people in every one of the election offices in the different counties across the state, so they're monitoring there at the election offices themselves. They're also monitoring the Secretary of State where all of those numbers get sent. So we're hoping we're getting the freshest numbers possible coming from the AP here. As you can see, Donald Trump far and away leading out in front of Nikki Haley here. This was expected. In fact, most polls have put him somewhere in the mid 70s to mid 80s as far as percentage goes for tonight's vote. And so, he's getting close to that target. Again, this is with not even all of the early vote in. There were about 1.2 million votes on the Republican side. So you can see that early vote is still coming in here. But Nikki Haley pulling about 20% of the vote right now. And I'll let our experts talk about this in just a few minutes. And we talked a little bit about this earlier tonight, Jason. But you can see, Ron DeSantis here getting 14,712 votes. Asa Hutchinson, 1,094 votes so far. Chris Christie, 3,680. These are people who have all dropped out of the race. And so the question is, did people not pay close attention? Do they not know that candidate is out of the race? Or is that a protest vote? But certainly I think we might be able to argue that this number right here, this 16,715, could be a protest vote to these top two names that you see up here, Trump and Haley, because that is the uncommitted part of the ballot where people decided that they didn't want any of the choices there on the Republican side. I'll hit one more here. President Biden doing as expected tonight. This again with not all of the early vote in just yet, pulling about 88%. That was expected. This really isn't a hotly contested primary, Jace.
Why do people still vote for Chris Christie, for Brian Binkley?
Mail-in ballots.
Who voted a while ago?
They voted a while ago.
How about the uncommitted, though?
Some maybe, well, look, maybe they really like the candidate and they wanted them to know that they missed them in the race. But no, some of them may very well have been mail-in ballots. Sometimes they just have their heart set on that candidate and they think they would have been the right person, and so they vote. The uncommitted, I think, is odd. You go to the trouble of voting the Republican primary and then don't have an opinion on the top of the race. Right. But maybe they were there to cross over and vote for someone they knew at in another spot on the ballot.
Let's go to some new numbers we have coming in. This is some updated numbers. Polls have been closed for about 40 minutes so far. Dallas County Sheriff's race here. One we've been watching, and Marion Brown is the incumbent. Lupe Valdez is the former sheriff. She left that position to run for governor a few years ago, lost to Governor Greg Abbott, and Marion appears to be keeping her job, Domingo, with the early votes coming in. Are you surprised at the numbers at all?
No, I mean, you got the former sheriff, Lupe Valdez, running. Good name ID, she ran for governor of Texas. But Marion Brown is the incumbent, but she may be in a runoff.
If it doesn't go to 50%, then we could see the former sheriff and the incumbent sheriff in a runoff.
That's correct.
Who would that
help?
Sheriff
versus sheriff.
Yeah.
You know what? Nobody votes in a runoff except family members. It'd be a toss-up either way. Yeah, who got their voters out?
Some more new. Bernadine, do you want to chime in?
Yeah, Jason, because Lupe Valdez does well in any race she runs, and some think that she's not a very good campaigner, but she gets votes.
Huh.
Let me add something to what Domingo said. The person who wins the runoff is the one that has the best ground game and the best organization, because it's all about getting your voters back out to vote. And if you don't have organization, you can't do that.
We saw that with Ted Cruz in 2020 and 2012 rather, and a number of candidates. This is House District 12, the race to replace Kay Granger in Congress. Craig Goldman, the easily front runner here, 54%. It looks like he's hanging on to that with almost half of the precincts reporting. This includes the early vote over John O'Shea, who has a little more than a quarter of the vote there, Bud.
Well, and I forgot to mention earlier, Craig Goldman is perceived as the Lockheed candidate, the Lockheed favorite. This is the district that represents Lockheed at Washington. It's expected to bring home the bacon for Lockheed. And Goldman was perceived as the Lockheed.
And explain why, for folks who don't realize Lockheed has such a presence in North Texas, there's a lot of money that comes with it.
Well, I mean, the tremendous amount of jobs. At some point, Fort Worth was the second largest recipient of federal defense funding after San Diego. The second most money for defense equipment came into Fort Worth. I don't know if that's still the truth, but the Lockheed counts on the airplane contracts right now from all around the world, not just for the United States, but to equip our allies around the world.
And if Goldman's that candidate, then he's doing well so far tonight. Some more new numbers here coming in that we want to talk about. This is House District number 26. This is the race to replace Michael Burgess in parts of Tarrant County, Denton County, out to Decatur as well. Brandon Gill still in the lead here, substantially in the lead with 28% of the precincts reporting, along with the early vote. He has more than half of the vote. There are a lot of Republicans in this race, and the fact that he's out that far, Wade, what does that tell you? I mean, he had a lot of negative attack ads we've all seen.
Yeah, the fact that he's this far ahead, I think he's gonna end up being the winner. The vote may change a little bit on Election Day voting, but not that much. It's not going to swing 7 points to where he puts him into a runoff. I think he wins it. He wins it walking.
Yeah, I think that's the power of Trump, because all his commercials was just Donald Trump saying, "I endorse this guy unconditionally."
He'll never let you down.
And he's only like, what, 28 years old?
Yeah.
Is he that young?
That's just money and Trump.
I said close to 30. I'm not sure how close to 30.
Yeah,
but
so I'm just saying
he hasn't even voted. I think he's voted like one time, but he's the anointed Trump candidate. But he came in with all the money and all the name ID early. And look who he's up against. He's up against a guy who hasn't been in politics in 20 years and somebody who doesn't live in the district. And so, he came in from his Flower Mound base and he just walked in with all this national cred. Remember that all the people who live in Denton County and Collin County mostly just moved here. I mean, they're all newcomers who have been watching national news. They came from somewhere else in the country, and they want to vote for whoever they see on the national news, whoever national figures come in and endorse. When you have people who are Trump fans coming in endorsing Brandon, that's who they're going to vote for.
And that's who the votes are going to so far. Here's some more new numbers coming in tonight. This is House District 32 congressional seat, the other big congressional seat we've been watching tonight. And this is the race to replace Colin Allred. Julie Johnson, Democratic state rep, over the 50% mark here, above Dr. Brian Williams with 21%. And again, so it looks like we have two, Domingo, we look at 26, House District 26 and 32, lots of candidates in both of these races. And could both of these avoid a runoff?
Looks like Julie Johnson's really running a strong race. I mean, she was proudly running about what she stood for, abortion, her LGBT credentials, and she's going to win probably at 51% with the early vote in, and probably on Election Day, she should maybe pull it off without a runoff, and she would be replacing Colin Allred in Congress.
Bernadine?
Well, and it's really interesting because she is running on what she believes in. She believes in her principles. She believes in what she wants to do once she gets to Congress, and apparently the voters agree with her.
And you can't predict politics, obviously. I've been wrong a million times, but I would have guessed, Bud, that both of these races, 26 and 32, Tarrant County and Dallas County, with so many candidates in there, I would have thought that both of these would have run into runoffs.
They both turned out to be really simple calls, and I'm really surprised too about 32. But we'll see how this comes out by the end of the night.
Yeah,
indeed it is early.
It is early. Polls have been closed for about 45 minutes or so now, and we haven't talked to Jason Wheeler in a while, and I'm going to make him nervous and start talking about him. And Jason, can you?
I always get nervous when you talk about me.
Show us what you're seeing over there, man. You have a kind of a different look at the numbers.
Yeah, I'm looking at this this source, just because I was talking to you earlier about we were pulling the Associated Press numbers, because they're in all of these different counties. This time we're pulling from BTI, which basically is scraping different sources like these different county elections places and the Secretary of State's office. And so I'm pulling that for this one here and looking at the Senate race here to see, on the Democratic side, who is going to be taking on the incumbent Ted Cruz come November. And I don't know what the panel is thinking about this. And I mean, we're still at, this is with 330,000 votes counted at this point. Again, in the Democratic primary, there were about 600,000 votes cast in early voting. That doesn't include Election Day. And so we haven't even really made it through that whole total from early voting. But with about, more than half of the early vote counted, to see Colin Allred out at this 72% mark, I just don't know if anybody would have predicted that. But, as Domingo was saying, though, he made a great point on this. You can see the green here populating. These are the counties in which Colin Allred is doing very well and is far in the lead. Not surprisingly, Dallas County, where he is currently a congressman, he is just running away with it. You see in the major population areas doing very well. What we don't see yet, though, is, Bexar County, San Antonio, and points west, talking about Medina, Uvalde, here in Maverick County, where Eagle Pass is, Val Verde County, where Del Rio is. All of this should be probably very friendly territory for Roland Gutierrez because he is the state senator for this area. So we're not seeing that register yet. We might want to wait for all of that to come in with this valley down here to see if that really starts to move a little bit. But right now, things looking very good for Colin Allred, Jason.
All right, Jason, thanks a lot. Let's go to some new numbers we have for State Senate District number 16. This is in Dallas County. And this is one, it's in Dallas, but people are watching this one statewide. Vinton Jones, the incumbent, with 65% of the vote. He is being challenged by a fellow Democratic state rep, an unusual race here. That's why we're really looking at it. Victoria Niave Criado, she's at 35%. And I believe we do have right now the senator himself at Vector Brewing. Senator Johnson, Jason Whiteley here in Dallas. Good to see you again. First reaction to these numbers. I know that you and your opponent both thought this would be a closer race.
It's very gratifying. We have worked extremely hard at trying to communicate with voters to run a positive message. You never know how elections go ever. Polling is never accurate. So it's a scary time, but it's an important time. As I discussed with you when I did that early interview in the primary stage, it's an opportunity for the voters to engage in the process in a way that they can't before because it doesn't have the coverage, it doesn't have the attention. We are very happy with the way it's come out. I think we got our message across. And I'm delighted with the results so far. I'm eager to get back to work, really.
Have you heard yet from your opponent yet?
I have not yet. I think, probably want to see some more results come in. I've not heard yet from Victoria. I'm sure I will.
Senator, what message do you think this sends? There's a 30-point difference between you and her. What message does that send?
The way I read this, Jason, is we tried to run a very positive message about the importance of getting real work done at the same time as fighting against that rightward drift that really threatens the future of Texas. At that same time, you've got to make sure people are getting health care. You've got to make sure we have a future with water and electricity and that our education system stands up. And I think people really responded to the scope of work that the good people in my office and I have been able to do. And if it sends a message at all, it's that people really want some things accomplished and they want change in this state, and it means rolling up your sleeves and making sure that you get bills passed, that you kill bills where you can, and that you make sure that the needs of the district and state are met.
When this is all said and done, do you think there's any ill will, any bad feelings at all in the Democratic Party?
Oh, I think in the Republican Party, the Democratic Party, anytime there's a primary season, there's bad feelings because it's hard. People want to win. It can get ugly. People say things that maybe they shouldn't, but that's politics. We all have to be grown-ups here. On the other side of this, it's extremely important, particularly in the Democratic Party, where we are trying to build strength. We are trying to lead this state. It's really important that people get past the ill feelings of the primary, come back together and get to work on what matters. But that itself takes work. It's its own kind of work to get over the ill feelings that can come out of a difficult competition.
And Senator, last question for you. This is the curveball here for you, but besides your race, which you've been concentrating on for a long time, I think they're watching some numbers back there in the background. Besides your race, what else are you watching for tonight? What other races?
I've got a lot of friends in the Democratic primary I'm cheering for, and I'm watching those, but I'm also particularly interested in the just bizarre challenges happening in the Republican primaries right now. We've got really conservative Republicans who are being challenged because they're supposedly not conservative enough because they didn't support Ken Paxton or they didn't support vouchers. And I'm wondering, as a Democrat who works with other Democrats and who works across the aisle to get things done, what is that legislature going to look like next session? What is going to prevail? That hostility we're seeing over there? I mean, look, it's been a really hard primary on the Democratic side for a lot of people, me included. On the Republican side, it's nuts. I am watching closely to see what happens over there because I want to know what sort of environment I'm walking into.
Senator, we'll be watching this race as well. Thanks a lot for your time tonight. Good luck to you. All right, let's head back over.
Thanks so much for letting me talk with you.
Absolutely, anytime. Let's head back over to the analyst and kind of talk about some of the things he said. And I realize you guys may not have been able to hear it, but wait, let me ask you about something he said. He said he doesn't know what he's going to be walking back into because the other races he's watching are the Republican primary races. When he said you have some really far-right guys being challenged by even farther right guys who are calling the far-right guys rhinos. What do you expect to happen tonight when it's all said and done, when the dust settles?
I expect most of the incumbents to win, especially those who were endorsed by Abbott. I think maybe a few of the Paxton candidates, challengers, will win, especially those that did not have Abbott's endorsement, and especially those that Abbott endorsed against. So I think by and large incumbents will win, with the exception of a few races on the fringe that Paxton really got involved in, and they didn't have Abbott coming out strong.
Domingo, let me ask you about that race here with Senate District number 16. Do the numbers surprise you? Victoria Niave-Criado is a well-known figure, but she's behind by 30 points against the incumbent.
Yeah, I was expecting her to do better and that it would be a closer race. But anytime you take on an incumbent, especially incumbent state senator, they have all the advantages. They got the money, they got the lobbyists, they got all the resources, and he's well liked. So I'm surprised by the margin, but I'm not surprised that he won.
I don't want to get ahead of ourselves here and talk about this, but he is winning, exactly. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but what does Victoria Niave-Criado do after this? She walked away from a safe seat. She could have easily been reelected there.
Well, she's relatively young. She's in her early 40s, and I think she could run for either countywide office or statewide office at some point. She still has a career ahead of her if she decides to keep and stay in politics.
Yeah, I can't imagine she walks away from politics at all. Let's go back to Collin County now. Tiffany Liu is in Allen, where those lines are still stretched out long, and as Jobin Puneker was telling us a little earlier, will likely go for another 45 minutes or so. Tiffany, what are you seeing at your location?
Well, Jason, I'm here at the Allen Municipal Courts building where Jobin was earlier, but the line actually has shortened significantly since I last checked in. Let me show you what's going on behind me right now. It's just now, we're at the front of the building, so it's no longer wrapped around the corner. And if you look closely here, Billy's zooming in for us, there's a police officer standing right there. He marks the end of the line, which means everybody before him got here by 7 o'clock, so everybody before him can vote. Anybody that came after obviously wasn't able to vote because that 7 o'clock cutoff time. Now, I did speak with the Collin County Elections Administrator. He tells me this is pretty typical of the Allen Municipal Courts building and any city hall places that you vote in Collin County. This location in particular, he tells me, is always the second or third busiest polling location. And so, again, everybody who's in line right now is able to vote. I also got some new numbers from the Elections Administrator here in Collin County. He tells me that so far more than 54,000 people voted in person today, probably several more hundred by the end of the night, and 80,000 people early voted. So we're at around a 19% voter turnout, 60% in the earlies, 40% today here on Super Tuesday. So again, this line has shortened significantly since we got here earlier today. It was wrapped around the corner. Even after the sun set, it was around the corner and in front of City Hall. And right now, things are looking good. People have been waiting an hour 45. But again, all these folks that are standing in line right now, they are going to be able to vote. And we are reaching the end of the line here. Let's send it back to you in the studio.
Wow, Tiffany, thanks so much for that information. Let's go back to the biggest race of the night, the U.S. Senate race on the Democratic side. This is going to be the person that runs against Colin Allred. That runs against Ted Cruz, rather, but Colin Allred tonight is the one everyone's talking about. 50% of the vote in statewide right now. Colin Allred with 2/3 of the vote. Roland Gutierrez way behind at 15% of the vote. Teresa Woodard is with the Colin Allred campaign tonight. She is standing by with a state representative, and a lot of Democrats they're watching this pan out. Teresa?
Yeah, Jason, I would say there is definitely optimism here, maybe cautious optimism, no more, because they are seeing these numbers, and I think they are quite excited with the numbers that they are seeing. I want to bring in State Representative Chris Turner from Tarrant County. Representative, tell me what you're feeling right now, how you're feeling about the numbers that you're seeing.
Well, it looks great. It's early still, a lot of votes to be counted still, but right now Colin has a significant lead all over the state. We're seeing big numbers here in North Texas, obviously, his base, but also in Houston and even San Antonio. So it looks very encouraging so far.
Are you surprised at all by those numbers? Because I think a lot of us thought that Colin Allred had name recognition in the DFW area, but perhaps not in South Texas, not in Houston. So are you surprised?
Well, I think it speaks to the excellent campaign that Colin and his team have run, and that they've really gotten out around the state and worked really hard to earn the votes of voters in the Democratic primary from from Beaumont to El Paso, and I think that's what we're seeing tonight. And I think it projects very well for November. I think Colin's going to come out of this primary with a lot of momentum and take the fight to Ted Cruz.
And of course, this means you don't have to spend more money in a primary fighting within your own party. You have money left over to fight towards November. Why is he the right person to take on Ted Cruz in your mind?
Yeah. Well, I think when you look at Colin's career, this is someone who took on a 20-plus year Republican incumbent in Congress back in 2018, a race that no one thought he could win. And he went on to win by a healthy margin. And he's been a very effective member of Congress, delivering for North Texas, the Garland VA hospital, the federal infrastructure bill. Colin gets results. That's why he's considered the most bipartisan member of Congress in the entire delegation. And so he is, without question, the right person to take on Ted Cruz. And I think he's going to provide a great contrast to Ted Cruz, who podcasts 3 days a week and spends his time talking to right-wing media instead of working for the people of Texas. We need a senator who works for Texas.
Final question for you, Representative. For a long time, Texas has been looked at as just the ATM and not necessarily the recipient of a lot of investment, especially from the National Democratic Party. Can Colin Allred change that? How should he do this to try to get more money in from outside of Texas to fight this campaign?
Well, look, I think there's no secret Colin's been an incredibly successful fundraiser. In fact, he's outraised Ted Cruz so far in this campaign, which is remarkable to outraise a sitting U.S. Senator. And so I think Colin's fundraising will continue to be competitive. I think he'll continue raising a lot of money here in Texas. He's raised money from virtually all out of every county in the state, out of all 254. And he is raising money from across the country because there's a lot of interest in defeating Ted Cruz, who's widely considered to be the worst U.S. Senator in the entire country.
All right, we will leave it there. State Representative Chris Turner, thanks for your time tonight. Enjoy the watch party. I can see it's filling up a little bit,
Absolutely.
So we appreciate your time.
Thank you,
Jason, we'll send it back to you, but I think the message here is they like what they're seeing on the numbers. They're not going to make the call until somebody else makes it official, but the momentum is here. You can feel it. And, I think it is a bit surprising when you have a field of 9 candidates that you come out of this without a runoff. And so, as State Representative Chris Turner said, he feels like that really bodes well as they are building momentum and heading towards November.
Yeah, Teresa, that's really good insight. Thanks for that. Domingo, let me ask you, this is shaping up to be a big night for Colin Allred, but we don't have any numbers in from the Rio Grande Valley yet, where Gutierrez is probably really hoping that they come out for him.
Well, it's going to be real difficult to come back. That's about half. You said it was 50%?
Yeah, 50% of the vote in.
So even if he gets a large numbers in South Texas, it'll still be difficult to offset that kind of a lead even if he gets, let's just say he picks up 8 or 9 counties down in South Texas, those numbers are not going to be as big as Dallas and Houston. He'll be winning by 20 or 30,000 votes as opposed to the votes he's winning by in Harris and Dallas County and some of the other areas. So I think Colin Allred probably will be the nominee, but it looks like he keeps going down every time he comes up. So in Travis County, he's down to 58. And when we look around, I think Colin should win. He has the money. He has the National Democratic backing. The Democrats nationally want to take out Ted Cruz, and they think Colin is the ticket there. But Roland Gutierrez still might be able to pull off a runoff, but it doesn't look good right now.
It does not look good. Wade, let me ask you, if you're the Cruz campaign, you're seeing these numbers that Colin Allred is doing, how does that change things?
If I'm seeing these numbers, I mean, the best thing that could happen for Cruz is for Allred to be in a runoff, because you want his attention and money focused elsewhere for these next couple months.
But if he doesn't make a runoff?
So a runoff would be wonderful for Cruz. But I think he's looking at these numbers, and more importantly, he's looking at the candidate. And the candidate is a charismatic, well-spoken, very articulate individual, and been an effective United States representative. So Ted Cruz wants people to think that this is a real race, because he wants them to volunteer for him, give him money for his race. But at the end of the day, it's Ted Cruz's race to lose. And Colin Allred, or whomever is going to be the nominee, has got to do more than just be a good-looking, smart, charismatic candidate, because Ted Cruz is a campaigner.
I hear you making noises over here, Bernadine.
Well, yeah,
do you agree with Wade or not?
Ted Cruz is a campaigner, but obviously, Allred has a good organization, because he started out with little or no recognition outside of his district. And now it appears as if he's going to be the nominee for the Democratic Party, and he has done extremely well. So that shows that he does have some kind of an organization that can come toe-to-toe with Ted Cruz.
We heard these same arguments with Wendy Davis, as she has organized and had a good national backing. And look, Ted Cruz is probably going to win by 8 to 10 points in November, no matter how good of organization and how popular Allred is among Democrats.
Let's go ahead, buddy.
Jason, I don't want to throw cold water on Allred mania here, but it is an election with a presidential race at the top of the ticket.
Yeah.
The straight party turnout will be much heavier than it was in the Beto race for Ted Cruz. All the Republicans will be out this time, and they'll all be voting for Ted on their way down the ticket. So he'll pick up at least 2 to 4 points. He'll do better. Cruz will do better this time
because this is Trump country.
Cyclically, this is a bad cycle to be running against Ted Cruz. Now, the only advantage that Colin has is being able to lay out. If you compare the two and say, okay, who are Texans going to vote for? The former Baylor football player or the debater from the Ivy League? Usually, Texans would pick the former Baylor football player. But in this case, it's going to be a landslide presidential race. Cruz is going to be on the coattail.
Well, let's get to Sydney Persing. She's following some breaking political news that's happening at this hour. Sydney, what do you know?
Yeah, hey Jason, so this breaking news just coming in the last several minutes. ABC News projects that Trump, Biden, and Cruz are all three projected to win here in Texas. Again, that just came down in the last several minutes. We also know that Biden and Trump are both projected already to win several other states. That includes North Carolina, Virginia, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Maine, and Arkansas. That news from Arkansas also just came down in the last several minutes. For Biden, he too is already projected to win Vermont, Massachusetts, and Iowa. But again, here at home in Texas, we are just now learning that Trump, Biden, and Cruz are projected to win the state. I've been monitoring, as you all have been focusing here at home in Texas, I've been monitoring the primaries results coming in from across the country. Of course, still too early to tell on Vermont on the Republican side, but as of right now, the ballots that have been counted, that's where Nikki Haley has the best chance, is most neck and neck with former President Trump. But we are continuing to monitor all of this, and we'll keep you updated as more of these numbers come in.
It is 8 o'clock in Texas. Polls now closed in El Paso, and the ballot count is on. Is he starting us? In this hour, Attorney General Ken Paxton vowed revenge against fellow Republicans who impeached him. But is Paxton getting any revenge tonight? Two Democrats heading to a runoff right now in the race for U.S. Senate. The winner will take on Ted Cruz this fall. Sheila Jackson Lee walked away from her seat in Congress to run for mayor of Houston. But when she lost that, she now wants her old job back. New numbers from Harris County. Texas will send new faces to Congress, replacements for Representatives Colin Allred, Michael Burgess, and Kay Granger. We'll break down each primary. An update on that rare race in the state Senate, incumbent Nathan Johnson versus fellow Democrat, State Rep Victoria Niave Criado. This is a reckoning for Democrats in Dallas. And House Speaker Dade Phelan facing a challenge from the far right. We'll have new numbers from Beaumont. What does tonight tell us about November? We have crews with candidates all across the state. We have race results and expert analysis that you won't get anywhere else. You're watching Super Tuesday in Texas on WFAA. All right, you are watching live coverage of Super Tuesday in Texas. I am Jason Whiteley, joined by a number of analysts here in studio. We have Wade Emmert. He is the former chairman of the Dallas County Republican Party. Bud Kennedy is a columnist at the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. Bernadine Steptoe, political producer at WFAA in Dallas. Krista Castaneda is joining us this hour as well. She is a Democratic strategist as well to look at some of the numbers, and for Domingo Garcia, where he was there. I want to go to Jason Wheeler now and talk about some of the numbers you were just zoomed in on the race I was going to ask you about. Okay, Jason, and that
it always
was
works that way.
The Dade Phelan race.
Yeah.
In southeast Texas. Dade is the House Speaker running for re-election against David Covey. What do the numbers look like now at 8 o'clock?
Well, I want to refresh this real quickly because what we're looking at here is brought to us by the Associated Press. As I explained earlier, they have people in every single county across the state who are watching the vote at the elections sites there, at the actual election offices, and they're also monitoring the Secretary of State numbers where all of those numbers eventually end up. So a lot of times that's the freshest data that we have, but I just want to make sure that another service that we we use here that also scrapes for that data isn't picking up something a little bit more current. So we got David Covey with 55. Yeah, they agree right now. So David Covey, the challenger here, endorsed, of course, by Ken Paxton, the Attorney General, against Dade Phelan, who is the sitting House Speaker, also a Republican. But as you'll remember, he shepherded through the impeachment of Attorney General Ken Paxton last year, and he is probably the top member who is in the Ken Paxton revenge tour in this election. The Attorney General trying to take out a lot of the Republicans who voted to impeach him. And again, he has weighed in for David Covey in this race. We still only have 9,700 votes in this. It's still really early here. Let's bring in the total on that. For instance, I'm not seeing anything from Jefferson County, which makes up a huge chunk of this district. It spans several counties here. We see Jasper County there. Orange County is where this vote is coming from right now. So again, Dade Phelan from the Beaumont area, and we're not seeing those numbers in just yet. So still a lot of vote left to be counted in this one, and it matters where it comes from too, Jason. But you know, it always feels good, I guess, when you're the challenger and you come out of the gates with those first votes counted that puts you in the lead. But we'll have to keep on watching that one closely tonight, along with a whole lot of other races. I mean, the Attorney General endorsed challengers to about 3 dozen Republicans, incumbent Republicans in the Texas House, because they voted for his impeachment. We're going to see how that goes as the evening progresses.
Thanks, Jason. As we look at those numbers here, let's look at the Secretary of State numbers with this same race, because David Covey is the challenger here, the Trump-endorsed challenger running against the House Speaker, the incumbent Dade Phelan. You see this number and you're like, wow, you know, he's crushing him here. But as Jason pointed out, the population center there is Jefferson County, the area around Beaumont, and that has yet to report according to what we saw there. So 20% of the vote in. Any surprises at all? That's Orange County voting. There's 4 counties in this district.
Well, this is one of the races where Paxton supported the incumbent, and Greg Abbott did not come out in support of Phelan.
Paxton supported the challenger.
I mean, Paxton, yeah, the challenger, David Covey, and Abbott did not come out for the incumbent. And so, you know, it's not surprising that Covey's got traction there. I'm a little surprised that he has that much traction, and that might not bode well. It'll obviously turn on the turnout from Jefferson County, Phelan's home county. Yeah. And so, but it's closer than I expected it to be.
It is.
And let's talk about Jefferson County, because in Jefferson County, and I have these numbers on the screen from Jefferson County elections, Dade Phelan won that county with 59% of the vote, or is carrying it so far, 4,200 votes. Covey had 37% of the vote, 2,600 votes. So Phelan with a 16,000 vote lead in Jefferson County.
1,600 votes.
1,600 vote lead.
Yes.
And Covey was expected to carry Orange County, and that's where the numbers are at
Covey's
this point.
from Orange County.
Yeah.
Phelan's
But
from
I think
County.
from the Secretary of State's, Covey was up maybe 1,400 votes. So this puts them almost neck and neck with these numbers from Jefferson County.
A lot closer is how that race might turn out. Let's go to some more new numbers. New numbers here. This is the U.S. Senate race, the Democratic race. 51% of the vote in now. Colin Allred at 66% of the vote. Roland Gutierrez at 15%. What we don't have in, Chris, I want to ask you about this. We don't have any of the numbers really from the Rio Grande Valley in on this yet. But do you see any way that Roland Gutierrez can make up some of that ground and drive Colin Allred into a runoff?
Well, he's clearly the second runner right now, but Colin's got to be very pleased with these numbers. The Rio Grande Valley doesn't have, as Domingo said, the number of votes that could really put it into really contested territory. So I think we're looking at Colin being our nominee.
How surprising is that?
With 9, I think it's pretty surprising. I think it says a lot for how well Colin Allred has done.
Yeah, and what does it say looking at November, though, against Cruz? It tells me the Democrats are ready to get behind somebody.
Well, yes, the Democrats are ready to get behind somebody. We need a good turnout in November. We need to carry Colin over the top. It's going to be tough. Wade has already weighed in on this. And
Wade in, bud.
Yes.
Wade in,
yes.
bud. Yeah. You know what? Yeah, on that race, Wheeler, go ahead. We'll get a camera to you. Talk.
I was just going to mention, I mean, you know, again, a lot of surprise tonight that Allred has pulled this far ahead here. You know, still a lot of vote to count, but has pulled this far ahead. And at least at this point anyway, again, many ballots left to go. When you look at Bexar County, this is Roland Gutierrez territory. That is, he is a senator, a state senator for Bexar County is part of a big part of his district there. Colin Allred ahead of him almost to the 50% mark there in Bexar County. Again, still a lot of ballots left to go. But then here we go again. Nueces County down there near Corpus Christi, edging out just ever so slightly Mark Gonzalez, who is from Nueces County, the former DA there, considered more progressive and so forth. And again, he's pulled ahead of him. Again, a lot of ballots left to go, but this has all got to be adding up to make Colin Allred feel like he's having a really good night.
Let's go to Morgan Young right now. She is with the Gutierrez campaign in San Antonio. Morgan, these numbers are not anywhere near as close as I know the Gutierrez campaign thought they would be.
Well, Jason, you are right about that. State Senator Roland Gutierrez actually just arrived to his campaign watch party probably about 30 minutes ago. And his campaign manager took to the podium that's behind me just to let everyone know that they are watching results come in. Not a lot of commentary after that, just letting people know that they're keeping an eye on it and that we can expect the state senator to speak perhaps in an hour or so. At these events and these watch parties, it is common that we see other elected officials and other VIPs, if you will, who come to support and endorse candidates. And tonight here at State Senator Gutierrez's watch party, there is a special table of people who have come here to support him. There are multiple parents and family members of children who were lost in the Uvalde massacre who have come here to support him. And I had a chance to speak with 3 of the mothers who lost their children and really ask them why it was important for them to be here. Take a listen.
Kimberly Rubio, Lexi's mom.
Gloria Casares, Jackie's mom.
Veronica Mata, Tessa's mom.
First of all, I'm so grateful that y'all are taking the time to talk to us. And I think the big question that I have for you is why it's important for you all to be here supporting Senator Gutierrez.
Roland was here for us when almost no one was. He stood by us as we fought to raise the age from 18 to 21. And now we're here for him so that he can make a bigger impact.
Just like Kim said, Roland was here when nobody else was, and he has stuck with us, when slowly everybody's been kind of trailing off, and Roland has never left us.
Yeah, and he's been a true friend. He hasn't been a politician. He's literally been there for us through everything. He's helped us out tremendously.
One of the things that stood out to me, I spoke to him a little more than a week ago. He was in Dallas for an event, and I asked him about you all. I said, how, and he said, I talked to them yesterday. And you speak to the fact that he's continued to be with you and continued. What would Roland Gutierrez being a U.S. Senator representing the state of Texas, what would that mean?
The fact that he stood by us, stood by our children, he's working to ensure that our children survive, that they go to school and that they come home and that they prosper. What more do you want in a politician?
And you even said, not a politician, he's been a friend. And you mentioned, it's when something happens, when time passes, maybe sometimes it seems like people are paying less attention, and you're saying you do not feel that from him. Do you feel in general that a lot of the other politicians may have kind of let this huge thing happen and kind of let it go?
Yes, definitely. Just like you see it, just when a tragedy happens, you see everybody coming out slowly. There's another tragedy, and Uvalde kind of gets put on the back burner, and Roland hasn't allowed that. He's always gotten the chance to and made the time to learn about our children, not just ourselves, but especially our children. So when he goes anywhere, he always speaks on their behalf and always makes sure that nobody forgets their names.
I'm sure it's extraordinarily frustrating to listen to there being a debate about gun reform, gun law reform, there being any other side when you have suffered personally what you've gone through. What can you say about his stance on the space and his push for change in that arena specifically?
Well, he stood from the very beginning when everything happened, and he stood his ground, and he let everybody know what he represents, and he continues to fight for us, and he continues to fight for every child that's out there that deserves to go to school and not be afraid to go to school. I just say we haven't heard from any of his opponents. I've never personally spoken to any of his opponents, and I would think that after Uvalde and after such a heated debate about this topic that we would have. So that's unfortunate, and that just proves Roland's character.
You never spoke to Ted Cruz?
No. Well, we spoke to Ted Cruz, but they haven't come to us to discuss this as the election.
What does that mean to you?
it shows a lot, and I would hope it sends a message to the voters, but we'll see.
Last question for you. You have your beautiful children on your chest. This is all. They're always going to be with you. This will always be, something that you remember and that you hold on to, and that people should never forget. I mean, would an election to the U.S. Senate bring a step towards hope in this space? Would it mean anything greater for you?
Absolutely. If Roland's elected, it shows that people still care about what matters. And what matters is our children. What matters is their safety as Americans.
Just like how she said it, the bottom line is the safety of our children, and that's who we're fighting for, not just our children, but everybody else's children. And if Roland wins, we know that we've gotten that message out, and it's about our children.
I mean, the bottom line, it's just what's right. This is right. This is something that we shouldn't be arguing about. We should be fighting for our children's safety, and nothing else should matter.
Again, there are a table of parents and family members who lost their children and loved ones in Uvalde who are here to support him. And they were actually one of the first groups of people that he greeted when he arrived at his watch party with his family. Like I said, his campaign manager said they are watching those numbers come in. He went into this night confident that there would be a runoff. Obviously, we're seeing those numbers come in. They're lower than they probably expected. But there is still hope here as more of those numbers come in, and we're going to keep you updated on what's happening here. Jason?
Morgan, thanks a lot for that. Those families, Krista, from Uvalde have been with Roland Gutierrez time after time since he represents that in the state Senate. But something Jason Wheeler showed us a moment ago, Bexar County, which is where Roland is from, Senator Gutierrez is from, it's voting in favor of Colin. That's a surprise to me.
It's a surprise, but I think it just speaks to the strength of Colin coming out fast, hard, with money, with an organization. He's been better out of the blocks and better through the turns and all the way down to the finish line here. And while Uvalde is such a tragic issue, it is an issue that all the Democrats are running on. So it's not a choice of that issue versus some other issue when you're talking about Gutierrez versus Allred. You're just talking about, I think, who the primary electorate believes can beat Ted Cruz.
Wow. Let's go to some new numbers we have for State House District number 2. This is Hopkins County, Van Zandt County, and Hopkins County. Hopkins, Hunt, and Van Zandt. This is just east of the Metroplex in North Texas. Gill Dutton's the incumbent by a month or so. She was just elected in a special election that the governor called. This was the seat that was held by Brian Slayton, who resigned and was later thrown out of the state legislature because he had an affair with a young employee that he served drinks to. Gill Dutton was elected in that special election, and Brent Money is now leading this so far. But we saw these numbers. We wanted to show this, but the numbers, it's only 3% reporting here, Bud. There's still a lot left to come in. Van Zandt County is where Gill is from, and they haven't reported anything yet.
Yeah, we're missing Dutton's home county, but Hunt is the largest county in this district, which is Brent Money's home county. Again, we're seeing several of these races. We see that the candidate who's from the center of the district is the one that's getting the most votes, whether it's the Weatherford or Orange County or here. It counts to be from the biggest population area.
And Wade, this was another one of those proxy wars because Ken Paxton and Governor Abbott supported Brent Money, and Dave Phelan supports the incumbent, Gill Dutton.
Yeah, Gill, this is a rematch from the special election.
Which was nonpartisan. And
Gill squeaked by. And so you've got Governor Abbott and Paxton both supporting Brent Money. And she's an incumbent really in name only because she never had a chance to really take a seat and serve in the House. So it wouldn't surprise me if Brent Money wins this race. But as Bud said, there's more vote to count, and so we'll see if the rest of the district comes out in support of her.
Let's go to some new numbers we have here. This is House District number 60. This is one Bud was talking about a little earlier. This is to the west of Fort Worth, Mike Olcott and Glenn Rogers. Mike, there were a lot of campaign ads and mailers in this race here. Glenn Rogers is the incumbent. And Bud, I believe you were saying that Governor Abbott was backing Mike Olcott on this race, and he is way ahead. This is the early vote only, but he has 2/3 of the total votes so far.
He has a substantial lead in Parker, and Olcott won the early voting in Palapinta. So he will be the new state representative from west of Fort Worth. Mike Olcott's from a prominent land-owning Fort Worth family, the wealthy Boaz family. Staked out this district several years ago, ran one time when he was against Governor Abbott, was on Glenn Rogers' side, but Glenn Rogers didn't vote for vouchers, and so everyone piled in on Olcott. Whether they'd ever agreed with him politically before or not, suddenly Olcott was the guy. He's going to the legislature.
There are 7 state House races where both Abbott and Paxton endorsed the challenger, and this is one of them.
This is one of them. But let's go to a live picture in Allen to keep you updated on that. At 7 o'clock, Jobin Puneker was showing us the lines there, and he said there were probably an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes worth of lines. Well, it appears the last person and that police officer who was at the end of the line, preventing anyone else from getting in line after the polls closed at 7 o'clock, they finally got inside. But here we are at 8:23, an hour and a half after polls closed, and some of the residents there are still voting in Collin County.
I want to ask Wade something about that, Jason.
About Collin County?
Well, about these election day voters and these long lines. Is this because Republicans were told not to trust early voting, to vote only on election day? There was so much of that messaging at the national level this year. Is that why we're seeing these long lines today when they've had 2 weeks to vote?
I vote early so I can avoid the long lines, but I think it is true that more and more Republicans are starting to vote on election day rather than early voting, simply because they want to get maybe they don't trust the way it's counted. But that's not a refrain that I hear often.
Let's go to some new numbers for State House District number 100. This is South Dallas. This is Butler Terrace over towards Mesquite. Vinton Jones is the incumbent. He is going for his second term in the State House. He's with 55% of the vote. This is, I think, similar numbers that we saw earlier. This is the early vote. And Krista, as we know, the early vote is half, if not more, of the total vote we see tonight. He's cruising to victory here against 2 political veterans, Barbara Mallory Caraway and Sandra Crenshaw.
Yeah, I mean, that's the power of incumbency, I think.
Even after 2 years?
Even after 2 years. I think he has a strong following in his district. We see those 2 challengers on the ballot frequently, usually not successful in recent years. So I think it's not surprising.
And we do have Brittany Moncrief, WFA's Brittany Moncrief. She is in South Dallas right now with the incumbent, Vinton Jones. Brittany?
That's right. We are here at the Canvas Hotel at the watch party for incumbent Vinton Jones. He joins us now here. Right now, you are leading in the polls with 55% of the vote. So tell me just a little bit of what you're feeling at this moment.
I feel good. My team worked very, very hard to make this happen. And I'm so grateful to be able to see finally, after weeks and months of campaigning, that the voters are, from what we see so far, wanting to see us go back to serve in the Texas House, and that definitely means the world right now.
This is, you're currently in your term, and you're going again for this position one more time. So tell me, for you, why is this race particularly important for you? And even seeing the numbers that are coming in.
Absolutely. Well, the seat that I serve in House District 100 is a place that I was born and raised in. And so the constituents that I serve are not just constituents. They're my grandmother, they're aunts, they're cousins, they're people that I've grown up and spent a lifetime with. So the ability to be able to serve these individuals to the best of my ability means so much to me. And I know that this is just the beginning of that work of being able to serve House District 100, which historically has been neglected for so long.
And talking about that, because we do hear sometimes with a lot of constituents, they do feel that neglect or they feel ignored. But one thing that we've seen is when they talk about you, I know you personally have made a point to be visible.
Absolutely. One of the first things I promised when I was running 2 years ago was to bring stability to this seat, and also was to communicate to constituents. And so we spent a lot of time making sure that The residents of House District 100 knew what was going on in the state legislative body. They knew the bills that were moving, and that we stayed in contact with them, not just from a legislative standpoint, but even during the interim, going to neighborhood association meetings, meeting with community leaders, meeting with faith leaders and other leaders across the community, so that they know that they have a state representative that cared about their issues and that wanted to take those issues straight to Austin so that we can get things done.
Well, I'm going to let you go ahead and finish joining the family and your supporters here, because I know you guys are anxiously watching. I heard some cheering in the background a little while ago. So,
well, thank you so much.
Thank you. And so this is Vinton Jones. He's currently the incumbent candidate here for Texas House District 100. We have 3 other candidates that are also in this race: Barbara Mallory Calloway, Sandra Crenshaw, and Justin McFarland. Jason.
All right, Brittany, thank you for that. That's one incumbent who is happy tonight. A lot of other incumbents battling it out this evening. So we want to return back to the Ken Paxton revenge tour now. This is one of the big storylines that we're watching tonight. The Attorney General here in this state, who was impeached last year, is taking on a lot of the incumbent Republicans in House races. You see so many of these listed here. At the very bottom of this, races that we don't always give a lot of consideration to. The Texas Court of Criminal Appeals, place 1, place 7, and place 8. And I want to show you these right now because we're getting some interesting numbers on these. All 3 of those incumbents that Ken Paxton is going against are behind, in some cases by quite a bit. I mean, you've got right here the presiding judge at the Court of Criminal Appeals, Sharon Keller, with 198,000 votes versus 338,000 for the challenger who's been endorsed by Ken Paxton here. Again, that is a significant thing. You've got 9 judges on this Court of Criminal Appeals. And what makes this interesting is that Ken Paxton, again, has weighed in on these 3 judges because they made a ruling that was unfavorable to him a couple of years ago, where they basically said that he couldn't go in and prosecute voter fraud without checking in with the local officials first. He didn't like that ruling, and so he came out and he has been pushing their challengers in this primary. And again, in the fairly early going here, those challengers are doing very well tonight. And what makes this significant is this entire court has long been all Republican. They do have Democratic challengers, but you know, if you think about it, the Attorney General could influence 3 seats on this court, 3 out of 9, and this is the court that would hear an appeal if he loses his securities fraud case that is due to start next month in Houston. So again, that could be a significant development going forward. Just kind of put a pin in that one if these results hold as the night goes on, Jason.
Wow, Jason, an interesting insight over there. Let's go to some new numbers we have for House District 64 here in Texas. This is the seat that Dr. Lynn Stuckey is running for re-election in. House District number 64, and he's the incumbent, and this is a super tight race here. Andy Hopper with 45% of the vote. He is just looks like 75 or 77 votes ahead of Lynn Stuckey right now, the incumbent. And Wade, as you go through this, Bud, I want to ask you about this first. This is another one of the proxy wars.
Well, this is because of the endorsements, but you know, Stuckey is from the Denton County power base. He's from Sanger. You know, Hopper's vote is from Wise County. You know, Hopper leads one of the family decency social conservative groups that have been set up by the whole right-wing network of financiers. You know, they came after Stuckey with all kinds of allegations. You know, Stuckey is voted for vouchers. He's not somebody that was against vouchers, so he's not vulnerable to that challenge. But you know, still, Hopper's been able to. This is a far-right election. This election is taking Texas farther to the right.
Do you agree with that, Wade?
Well, I mean, at this point, it appears to be if Abbott and Paxton both endorse the challenger, then that's the death knell to the incumbent. But I'm not seeing Paxton's challengers win against Abbott's endorsement of the incumbents just yet. I mean, some of them they're in close races, but I have not seen them losing.
Let's go to House District 68 over in that part of the state in North Texas. This is David Spiller running for re-election. But is this Decatur
This is David Spiller's Jacksboro.
Jacksboro is
he
where David
succeeded
Spiller
Drew
is.
Springer in this House seat.
And David, if you're Representative Spiller, if you're watching tonight, my apologies for that. But Representative Spiller,
he was one of the impeachment managers.
He was, and he's also the author of the Senate bill, not SB 4, which is the one that he authored.
I believe it is the border bill.
I think it is the border bill. The number's what I was off on, but. With 2/3 of the vote, easily winning re-election there. The other thing that, as we have our producers in the control room and gathering some of this data for us, if you guys could line up, there are two races I'm curious about seeing. We might go to Wheeler for this. The first one is one I don't think Wheeler has. That's Dallas County Sheriff's race, Marion Brown and Lupe Valdez. But the second race, I do want to check back in on Dade Phelan, if you guys could get that lined up, because that race was just showing. There's another county reporting now, and it looks like we do have some new numbers to share in this race. This is Beaumont, David Covey with 50% of the vote. That's what Wheeler has as well, too, and Dade Phelan with 37%.
I think a little while ago he was at 55% when we had just the first votes trickling in on that one. We still don't have numbers, at least I don't have numbers here, through the Associated Press, which is there in Jefferson County, of course, and they're also watching the Secretary of State numbers where those numbers eventually go. This is Phelan's stronghold here in Jefferson County. I'm still not seeing those numbers, and so that's going to affect the overall percentage that we're talking about here. But again, David Covey right now in a nice lead here in the early going. But again, a lot of this is coming from territory that's much more friendly to him there in Orange County. Jasper County, he's also doing well there. That's the northernmost end of that district. You run into Louisiana, just to the side here of where we're looking at. So he's doing very well in the northern 2/3 of this district right now. What remains to be seen is can Dade Phelan get enough support here in his big base here to be able to turn those numbers around tonight. And who knows? Is it good enough if he just gets to 50%, 51%, and avoids a runoff even?
Jason, thanks for that. Let's go down to San Antonio real quick. Morgan Young's telling us that Roland Gutierrez is speaking to the crowd right now at 8:30. Let's hear what he has to say.
You guys come on back. Just come on. You're all right. No big speeches yet. Listen, everybody, this is, I am proud. Sarah, where are you? Where's my wife? Where are my children? Get over here. We're not done tonight. We've got a long night ahead of you, so I hope you're ready to stick around for a while. Let me tell you something. Texas is a great big state, and I've traveled every bit of it, 254 counties, and I've talked to people far and wide in the state of Texas. And it's an amazing place with amazing people. I just got a text from Joe Schuster, the county judge in Pecos County. And he said, Roland, you killed it. You got 111 votes and the congressman got 40. So there's going to be counties like that across this state. We have yet to even get through the early vote in the state of Texas. So that's why we're in for a very long night, folks. And so we're going to give you another update in about a half an hour. We have got just about 6 or 7 counties in on their early vote. We've got a lot more. We're still missing some of the bigger counties on early vote. We have a lot of the small counties in South Texas that haven't even come in yet. And so this is how democracy works. And sometimes it's painful, and sometimes it takes a lot, but every bit of it is going out and shaking hands with wonderful people like this from my friends from Uvalde, Texas, because that's what this race was about. This race was about Jackie Cáceres. This race was about Lexi Rubio. This race was about Tess Mata. This race was about Josiah Garcia. This race is about every child out there in Uvalde, Texas, and so many others, and 2 teachers. We're going to have that discussion here in a minute, but we're not done yet, not hardly. Because we don't give up in San Antonio, Texas. I want to thank you so much for being here. Cameras, give me another 30 minutes and we're going to give you a better update. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
State Senator Roland Gutierrez in San Antonio, 836. He's way behind here. We'll show you some new numbers that we have right now. Colin Allred, his lead has slipped down to 62%, but still he's way ahead. More than half of the precincts reporting in the state. Roland Gutierrez at 16%. He's at 83,000 votes. The hard numbers right now, 83,000 votes to Colin Allred, 320,000 votes. He says the night is not over. Krista, what do you think?
Well, yes, there are votes still to be counted, but in a Democratic primary, your early vote is going to be a good indicator for where you're going to end up, and we're seeing 56% of the vote already in. So I think it's going to be really tough for him to even pull into a runoff.
Yeah, I don't know how he gets there, Bernadine.
Well, and then even Domingo said that down in the precincts, the valleys where he's expecting the votes, there's just not enough to overcome what Allred has.
In the Rio Grande Valley,
Yeah.
Harlan,
Well,
Jill, McAllen.
Yeah, in the Rio Grande Valley.
And Brownsville.
So it just doesn't appear as if he has a way to overcome what Allred has.
But I'm surprised, we've all covered a lot of elections here, but coming out at 8:30, I expected him probably to say something else than he said, to hang on tonight.
I think he's done. He said, I've traveled to all 254 counties, and I think he's through. I think what we learned from this, Jason, is that traveling to 254 counties, 240 of them don't matter, particularly if you're in the Democratic primary.
Yeah, of course, Beto O'Rourke did that too in 2018. I believe we do have some new numbers. Correct me if I'm wrong, Desiree. This is for House District 32. This is the race to replace Colin Allred. Julie Johnson still above the 50% mark. This is 14% of the precincts reporting. Of course, Dr. Brian Williams, his campaign is hoping that turns around with so many votes still out there. And I'm curious if we do have the Dallas County Sheriff's race, which is one we have been watching as well. There are a number of open congressional seats that we've been seeing. Marion Brown still maintaining a 10-point lead over Lupe Valdez, but Krista, this is still just the early vote coming in. Yeah. And again, I don't know. I wonder, can Lupe Valdez make up that difference of 7,000 votes?
Well, we're in runoff territory right now, right? And
since she's below 50%, since Marion Brown's below 50%.
And it's entirely possible that Lupe could pull the other votes in the runoff as well. So I think Lupe's got to be happy with, she'd probably like to be first right now, but given that she's not the incumbent, it looks to me that she's running a fairly strong race with the way things are turning out so far.
Bernadine?
And she is. As I said earlier, it's amazing as to how Lupe Valdez can pull votes.
But she's 10 points behind.
Yeah, but those are early votes. And who would expect her to pull that many votes? And Marion Brown is an incumbent who's doing a decent job.
Yep.
Didn't Lupe Valdez run for governor? Am I forgetting something?
Did. Yes, she did.
Somebody who was the Democratic nominee for governor, was it? Am I forgetting that?
She was a Democratic nominee, what, 6-7 years ago?
I think that's right, Adam, but now she's in a runoff, in a runoff probably May 28th for sheriff.
Here's the deal. If you've got an incumbent that gets less than 50% of the vote, that's a problem, because that means that more people wanted someone other than you. And so when the runoff happens, if you don't mobilize your supporters, you're going to lose. So that is, all Lupe has to do is keep the incumbent, Brown, from getting 50% of the vote. And then she's got a great shot in the runoff.
We shall see what happens on that one. We have some more new numbers to share with you here. This is House District number 60. This is of course, the area west of Fort Worth, west of Weatherford, I believe. Glenn Rogers, the incumbent, still way behind with a third of the total vote in right now. The early vote and the total vote. It looks like Mike Olcott and Governor Abbott can chalk one win up here.
Mike Olcott said, what am I going to do? Greg Abbott gave me money. I guess I have to support him now. It's like, so he'll be in Austin.
Wade, any additional stuff on that?
It's the same story. If Abbott and Paxton supported the challenger, then the incumbent's in trouble.
Yeah, and it looks like Paxton. We haven't discussed him yet, but it looks like Abbott is doing decent tonight on the races that he was endorsing.
Except, yes, but we started off this whole segment by talking about Dade Phelan and Morgan Meyer in 108. Both of them are in runoff territory, which is a problem. Last numbers I saw out of House District 21 for Dade's county, Dade was was like in 47% or 45% to Covey's 47%. So that looks like it's going to a runoff, and that's a problem for a speaker.
So this is what you just said too. This is the incumbent under 50%.
That's right. That's exactly right. And Morgan, it's only I think is it a 2-person race for 108?
Mm-hmm.
It's yes. Just 100 votes or so separating the two, which Morgan is used to because that's how the general election will look.
Right. Let's go back to one of the races that we've been watching all night. This is District 32, the race to replace Colin Allred. Julie Johnson still above the 50% mark here with 51% of the vote. Brian Williams at 21%. 14% of the precincts are in. Rebecca Lopez is covering this for us tonight, and Rebecca is with the state rep Julie Johnson. Rebecca?
Yeah, we are here at the Julie Johnson watch party where they're feeling very confident. I have her here with me right now. So you're seeing the early numbers come in, all the early results in. How are you feeling?
We're feeling great. You know, with a full-out majority with just early vote is so exciting. We feel really great about Election Day. We had so much support today at the polls. We're just very excited for the results to come in.
You told me yesterday that you felt that you might outright win and not have to go into a runoff. Why were you feeling so confident? What were you seeing?
Well, just the feedback that we've had from voters. You know, this electorate is fueled by women, and women want to see women in office. And, you know, I'll be the first woman to hold this seat ever. And so, I mean, we just had so much support, and the feedback that we got, women are upset. They want their freedom back. And I've been a strong champion for women in the Texas legislature and just so excited where we are right now.
There was a lot of money spent on this race, millions of dollars, and here at the end you had more than $1 million come in from cryptocurrency PAC. Do you think that there were a lot of commercials running? Did that have something to do also with the fact that you saw this boost in numbers?
Well, you know, anytime you have people who make the decision to support a strong candidate, it's always great, but it did help us get our message out. You know, it just enabled a lot more people to learn about our campaign, learn about what we stand for, become aware of the race, and think, hey, yeah, I'm going to go vote for her. And so it's been really great.
You could make history if, in fact, the results stay as they are. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I'll be the first LGBTQ person ever elected to Congress from the state of Texas, or any southern state for that matter. And I think it's really significant given the fact that the state legislature has been the bullseye of hate towards the LGBT community. We've had to fight against so many hateful things in our state. And to also to come from that and to be this representative from the state, it really means a lot. There's a lot of visibility to our community. But what I've learned from more than anything is it's so important to have a seat at the table because there's a lot of good votes, but nobody's going to fight the way I will.
Well, thank you so much. I know you're about to give a speech here to your constituents. It's still a little early. I mean, we still have a lot of results that have yet to come in. We're getting some more numbers here showing that I guess your lead is increasing here. So
thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, so you heard that. A big shout out happening here as more numbers keep coming in and her lead continues here at her watch party. So we'll just keep watching these results come in. And we did speak with Brian Williams yesterday, Dr. Brian Williams, and he was confident that his numbers were going to be a little bit higher than they are. But it is what it is for now, and we'll let you know as soon as more results come in.
Rebecca, thanks for that information. Thank you for that, Rebecca. 8:45 here, almost 2 hours as polls close. I haven't seen you all night, man. We haven't been.
I've been laying low over
together.
Here. We got such a great panel of experts over there. It's just let's let them talk.
We need you to earn your money though tonight.
Yeah, no. So here we are at the big board now to do that.
Let's talk about this because there's a lot of vote still left out there.
A lot still to be counted. Julie Johnson just hanging on above that, that razor's edge lead over 50%. When you get into these races that have 9, 10 candidates like some of these do, it's really hard to avoid a runoff. You've got to get above that 50%. She's still hovering there. She's got more than 50% in the Dallas County portion of the district, more than 50. She went down a little bit there in Collin County. She's below 50%, and Denton County even further below that. But again, overall, she's still above that line. So, at least for now, things looking good for her, and the people there are very happy where Rebecca Lopez was at the watch party.
Let's talk about the House Speaker's race down here. And this one is one that everyone's watching across the state, and arguably people are watching this nationally.
Yeah, because it's going to mean something.
It will mean something. You have the far right part of the party against the traditionalist part of the party. House Speaker Dave Phelan is behind right now, but the population center right here in Jefferson County has not been counted yet.
Well, some of it has. We've gotten these numbers in from Jefferson County, and you can see Dade Phelan doing much better there. That's his home turf, if you will. So he's doing much better there, pulling almost 60% of the vote. But is it enough to overcome, Orange County, where Covey has really jumped out, and then also the Jasper County portion of the district where Covey is also in the lead there? This all boils down to vouchers here in Texas, school vouchers, as well as the Paxton impeachment. Dade Phelan made a lot of enemies high up, with the governor not getting those vouchers through, and of course with Paxton not getting, or rather getting the impeachment through last year. And so he was targeted by Paxton for sure, and Governor Abbott just sort of didn't say anything about him.
Jason, if this goes to a runoff or if Phelan loses, either one of those scenarios, this is stunning.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's an earthquake.
Yeah. Indeed
earthquake
so.
Politically.
And before we have to cut away for a TV break here, I do want to look at CD 18 as well.
Let's do that.
This is another race. Sheila Jackson Lee, we talked about earlier, almost half the vote, 40% of the vote
This was
in.
really in question
really
in the
was.
last several days. It almost sounded like, Sheila Jackson Lee, who is the long-time incumbent down there in the Houston area, it sounded like she might have been in jeopardy in these last few days. You just kept hearing all these anecdotes.
Right.
But she looks like she's doing just fine tonight. She lost the mayor's race there and jumped back in. And, at least right now, anyway, she's cruising back to her seat in Congress, but some vote to be counted still there too.
Indeed so. We are going to take a pause from this live stream. Don't X us out. Don't turn it off at all. We're going to cut away so Chris Lawrence and Cynthia Izagiri can update our TV audience about what's going on as well. So stick tight here.
And we're jumping into the commercial break to bring you results from election night. Don't worry, you won't miss any of the rookie. I'm Chris Lawrence.
And I'm Cynthia Isaguirre. Polls have closed across Texas. As the votes continue to be tallied, WFAA is updating all the results scrolling at the bottom of your screens. And a lot of the results we're seeing so far are from early voting.
Yeah, the numbers are changing by the minute, and Jason Wheeler and Jason Whiteley are here to break it all down.
Yeah, Chris and Cynthia, you know, we're just talking about the biggest surprise we're seeing so far is the race for Texas House Speaker. This is Dade Phelan. He represents a district in Southeast Texas, Beaumont, Orange area. And this is going to a runoff. A lot of folks I had talked to said that they thought he would win by, double digits.
Yeah.
Not at all. He's behind right now.
Yeah, Attorney General Ken Paxton is, at this point, maybe not popping the champagne yet, because there's still votes to be counted here. But this is an extremely tight race, considering this is a sitting Speaker of the Texas House. I mean, we were talking about this a moment ago. We haven't seen a sitting Speaker lose their race. Right. And again, he's not losing the race. At this point, it would go to a runoff. But we haven't seen a sitting Speaker lose their race and not be Speaker in 60 years.
Yeah, it's been that long. Let's look at the Ted Cruz numbers as well, because this is kind of interesting. We were talking about Cruz is easily winning here.
That was expected.
What's fascinating is that you have two other unknown Republican candidates.
Red and Rufus over here.
Red Gibson, 120,000 votes.
Yeah, that is I guess those are the Republican voters who just weren't feeling it for Ted Cruz. I had never heard of these two guys before tonight. Maybe they're a lot more popular than we thought.
They're getting a lot of votes here so far. Let's go to Tanya Iser. She is in Southeast Texas. She's been covering the campaign with House Speaker Dade Phelan. Tanya?
Well, I should mention this is a very tight race. The Speaker is actually at home watching returns with his wife and children. He said that they didn't have a watch party last time and they're not having a watch party this time. His staff is inside this restaurant behind us here at Madison's watching returns, but they have to really be on pins and needles about what we're seeing so far with these results. It's just so close. And as we've all mentioned, this basically is a proxy war over the Ken Paxton impeachment and also over vouchers. And Ken Paxton and Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick and Donald Trump all came out against Dade Phelan, and a loss here will send a big signal. And Phelan told me earlier that he is not only watching his race, but he's also watching these House incumbents from across the state, because this is going to determine whether or not the far right of the Republican Party wins the night. Back to you.
All right, thank you very much, Tanya. Right now, poll workers are counting ballots across hundreds of locations statewide, including in Collin County.
Yeah, the long lines we showed you outside of Allen City Hall just over an hour ago have finally cleared up, and all voters have cast their ballot, and now those ballots being counted. Collin County, just one of many in North Texas we're keeping a close eye on tonight. There are those long lines in Allen. We are following some really big races in Collin County, and as you can see, a lot of people showed up to vote. Our political coverage continues on WFAA Plus right now. Then we'll be back here with more local election results at 10.
Yeah, right after our Y'all-It-Takes team is posting a live episode of the podcast on WFAA Plus, we're going to send you back to the rookie and see you back here at 10.
All right, it is 9 o'clock. Polls have closed across the entire state in the El Paso area, the Mountain Time Zone, and of course at 7 o'clock across the Central Time Zone in all the major cities in this state. We have been watching a number of big races not turn out like the polls have shown or that we expected to turn out. But another thing we talked about early on tonight, if you were with us around 7 o'clock or about 6:45, 6:50, we talked about a place called Gillespie County. It's Fredericksburg. It's just outside San Antonio and just outside Austin, popular place for wineries, Oktoberfest, etc. But Gillespie County, the Republicans there decided to hand count all of their primary ballots tonight. Jessica Guzman is the editorial director at votebeat.org. Jessica, good to see you again. How's it going there tonight?
You know, it's hard to say right now. The polls closed at 7 p.m. like they have across the state, and they're saying that their counting is going pretty well. As of 6 p.m., they were done with about half of the early returned ballots. They will, based on that math, be counting all night and maybe longer. But they're moving along.
You made a good point earlier when we had you on, and one of our reporters that was talking to you, Sydney Persing, and you said that you reminded people that when people there crack open these ballots, there are a lot of races on the ballots. You're not just counting a ballot for Jason, ballot for somebody else. It takes a while to physically do this.
Right. So in Gillespie County, there are 30 races on the Republican ballot. That includes ballot measures and also local candidates. There are some pretty contentious races on this ballot. So turnout has been high. It's in keeping with what I think people expected it to be here. And we'll see how long it ends up taking. But when you're talking about, 6,000 ballots that each have 30 selections on them, that's a lot of time, right? That's thousands and thousands and thousands of bubbles.
Well, it seems like a lot of time. And just to remind our viewers where Gillespie County is, it's Fredericksburg is the county seat there, just to the west of Austin. Any idea, though, this is going to go into the night, I presume. Is this going to be all night into the morning before they get a final tally?
It's going to be all night and into the morning. We will be there. VoteBeat will be there watching. They are, in fact, counting these ballots at a winery. You mentioned the wine country down here. They're doing it at a winery, so I get to sit on the patio and watch them count through a glass window. And so I expect to be up all night.
There may be no better place in the state to be counting ballots right now than this winery. Just out of curiosity, why a winery? I know there are a lot of them there, but why?
Well, so they need a lot of space to do this. So they needed one really big room. They were going to do it at a church. It's not clear to me why they didn't end up doing it there, but a couple of days ago they announced that it was switching to this winery. It's called The Edge. It is inside of Fredericksburg, and their logo is a sideways corkscrew that says, "Come and taste it." Like the come and take it flag.
Jessica, thanks so much. Of course, you can read more from Jessica and her staff at votebeat.org. Jessica, we appreciate the insight as always. We'll check back in with you. Thank you for that. Let's head back over to the analysts and get some context on this. Here we are, guys. It's 9 o'clock. Things haven't turned out like in some races like we anticipated. Let's start with you, Krista. Biggest surprise so far tonight. What is it?
I think it's surprising that our front runner for senator has done so well. I think it's surprising that there appears to not going to be a runoff. We just checked the 9 o'clock vote in Dallas County. He's got 80% of the vote here.
Wow.
So hopefully, we're not going to be forced to expend our resources on a runoff as our opponents would like for us to do, and hopefully he's going to be able to take it all the way to the general election
in November. Bernadine?
Dave Phelan. I mean, I'm totally surprised because I thought that he would do better.
Let's go to these new numbers while you're talking here. This is with Dade Phelan. But yeah, I think we were all kind of surprised about these numbers. This is Dade Phelan's House seat in Southeast Texas. 50% of the vote in. David Covey is the challenger. He is backed by Dan Patrick, by Governor Greg Abbott. He's backed by Ken Paxton, the Attorney General here. This is the proxy war between that part of the party against Dade Phelan, who represents more of the traditionalists, some might say. This is going to a runoff, and Phelan is behind on this, Bernadine.
Well, as I say, that is very surprising because the thinking was that he would almost take it by 70%. And now it appears as if he's going into a runoff. So not only was he not able to, apparently, according to what we're watching now, not only was he not available to win it outright for himself, what does that say for those other candidates, those other incumbents?
And Bud, what does this say for that race? What does that say for the direction of the Republican Party of Texas right now?
Well, first of all, that is a very conservative district, a very conservative part of Texas. Some of these races that we're saying are surprises are races where the people voted the district, where the district is a very conservative district and the people have voted that way. I think that Phelan had the business leadership of Beaumont behind him, but more of the voters are in Orange County. It should not be a surprise when a conservative does well in that district, particularly when you had everyone from Donald Trump to Dan Patrick piling in against Dade Phelan. And what it does say, obviously, is that even if Phelan is able to survive the runoff, I don't know that the other House members will trust him to protect them as Speaker next year and choose him again as Speaker if he can't really protect himself in his own district. He'll have to show his strength in the runoff in order to be reelected as Speaker. Do you think, Wade?
Wade, that's a good point.
Well, I don't know what you're talking about. Everything happened just like I predicted tonight. I have not been. This race is closer than I expected it to be, but I don't think it's really a proxy war, this particular race.
You don't think so?
It's not, because Abbott has not endorsed Phelan, and it's not just about the impeachment. It's also about school vouchers, but it's also about property tax reform. And again, it's about Dade Phelan being Speaker and taking the arrows for the party and for the other members. So it's not really just a proxy war. And I don't think this means that the party's moving farther to the right. I think the party's already to the right. And it's just a question of the different nuances of the individual districts. We've seen that Governor Abbott's endorsement of both the incumbents and the challengers, for the most part, carries the day.
And it has tonight, yeah.
So far, at least up into the runoff.
Let's go to some new numbers we have here as well. A number of them coming in after the 9 o'clock hour here. This is House District 12, the race to replace Kay Granger. And Craig Goldman has slipped down below 50% against John O'Shea, and this means that Goldman is going into a runoff. 53% of the precincts reporting this was an open seat, the race to replace Kay Granger, and Goldman had the money, Bud. Goldman had the ads. Goldman, was widely considered the front runner. Does that surprise you?
In an anti-establishment voting year, he's perceived as the establishment. He still, doubles the nearest contender and will probably win a runoff easily with these kind of numbers. John O'Shea has been on a downhill slide the last few weeks of the campaign. He's been losing more endorsements to Clint Doris, who's finishing third in this race. So O'Shea is on a downward swing, and Goldman will probably come through in that runoff.
Bernadine?
Well, yes. And it also shows that while early voting does show a trend, it doesn't show the outcome, because he was so far up with the early voting numbers. Yeah. And I think, too, that he will win a runoff, but we still have, 40-some% that is still out?
Yeah, 47% is still out.
Yeah, so he could pull up even more. But I think that in that race, it is a little early, that we should wait for those 40% votes come in. How far, who knows, but.
A lot left to count there. We do want to go back to the biggest story of the 9 o'clock hour here. That's what we were just talking about. House District 21. This is in southeast Texas, Beaumont, Port Arthur, Orange, Vidor, Jasper area. And with half of the total precincts reporting so far, Dade Phelan, it appears, will be forced into a runoff. He is behind the challenger, David Covey, and not Teresa Woodard, Tanya Eiserer is on the road for us. She is in southeast Texas tonight with the campaign there. Tanya?
Well, Dade Phelan is at home with his wife and children. They did not have a watch party. They told me that they typically don't have a watch party, and his staff is back here at this place called Madison's behind me, watching the vote totals come in. It has to be kind of tough to watch for Dade Phelan. When I was talking to him earlier, I think he felt pretty confident that he might be able to avoid a runoff. But obviously it's pretty much clear that this is going to a runoff. I have to wonder, though, there was a third candidate in the race that we haven't talked about at all, Alicia Davis. She drew 9% of the vote. You have to wonder, as this heads into a runoff, who's where do those vote totals go? Do they go to Covey? Do they go to Phelan? Like, who did she draw from? I'm really curious about that. Perhaps Bud Kennedy and the experts on there have an idea, but I find that interesting because it seems like she is the person that's tossing this into a runoff. So we're hoping to catch up with Dade Phelan later tonight or in the morning, but as we've seen, this is clearly headed to a runoff.
And she has a good question there. Let's show you the numbers one more time here. David Covey with 9,900 votes, Dade Phelan with 9,600, but 2,000 votes went to Alicia Davis. The question now, since this appears to be going into a runoff, who gets Alicia Davis's votes, Wade?
Well, if Alicia Davis's voters actually come out on, the runoff, then they probably go to David Covey. I mean, but it's a totally
and tell us why.
Well, because if they were supportive of the incumbent, they would have voted for him to begin with. And so if the race now is between Covey and the incumbent, then they'll choose the non-incumbent. But it's a totally different election. It's all about getting your voters out. And the runoff, the total votes don't matter now. It's just about getting your apparatus up and running to get your voters back out. And this is where challengers have the benefit because their supporters are more passionate. They're not, the incumbents typically get the benefit of incumbency and name recognition. And people who are going to vote, they vote for the incumbent because they know them. But they're not going to come back out at the runoff.
And the runoff is at the end of May, of course.
May 28th, it's the day after Memorial Day.
Yeah.
So you have to wake everybody up the day after Memorial Day and get them back out to vote.
And if they're on vacation or heading out with their kids to summer vacation, that's a challenge there. Let's go to some more new numbers we have coming in here at 9:08, just a little more than 2 hours after polls close. House District 33 with 5% of the precincts reporting. I believe these numbers are very similar to what we saw earlier tonight. This is the Rockwall area, far eastern Dallas County and Rockwall County as well. Justin Holland's the incumbent. He was targeted by a number of the leadership in the GOP, and he's neck and neck with Katrina Pearson, a former Trump admin official.
Yeah, I think this was one race that Paxton endorsed Katrina, the challenger, and the incumbent voted against vouchers, but Abbott did not support the challenger.
Yeah.
So the governor was silent on this race. If he'd come out in support of Katrina Pearson, I think she'd be a lot farther ahead at this point.
Numbers might be different. Let's go to Sydney Persing now with some updates on what's happening nationally.
Hey, Jason. So we're just getting a couple numbers here, and I want to be able to share with you. So as far as the presidential primary goes, as we're looking across all the primaries across all the states, we are still waiting tonight at this hour on projections in California, Alaska, Utah, and Vermont. In Vermont, that's on the Republican side. Joe Biden is already projected to win there. Trump has won or has been projected to win every single other Republican primary, as has Joe Biden, with the exception of the territory American Samoa. Little-known candidate Jason Palmer is projected to beat Biden there. We are still looking at Vermont on the Republican side, as I've mentioned earlier. At last check, that's where Nikki Haley is the closest with former President. I'm just making sure we're not getting a number in right here. Okay, that is where she is closest, most neck and neck with former President Trump. He is expected to speak here in just a couple of minutes. I'm going to go monitor that and bring you any news that comes out of his remarks. Jason.
All right, Sydney, thanks for that information. We appreciate that. We do want to take a look at some of those numbers for the Republican race for president in Texas, because Donald Trump, of course, is going to be the winner here, already declared the winner with more than half of the precincts reporting. But the number we've been watching and that everyone's really interested in is how well Nikki Haley is doing. Does she pull him down from what polls have shown? And, the last poll, this runs about what the last poll showed. University of Houston Hobby School of Public Affairs, I believe, did the last poll, and it showed Trump with about 80% of the vote, Nikki Haley with 18%, with about 20%, and she's not too far off that, Wade.
Yeah, let me make a point about the way Republicans allocate delegates in Texas. We do it, for the most part, most of our delegates are allocated by congressional district. So it's like we're running small mini primaries in every single congressional district. And if Trump gets 50% or more in each district, he gets all three delegates from that district.
Winner take all.
in winner take all in the congressional districts. Now, there are other delegates that are allocated by caucus at the state convention. And so I suppose Nikki could maybe get some of those, but doubtful. So Haley, I think if Trump is winning by 50% or more in all these districts, it doesn't matter if she comes in 20, 30, 40%. Trump will get all the delegates from that district.
At the end of the day. You know, ABC News has just called the District 32 race, Congressional District 32 race for Colin Allred, and that is some pretty big news for the Allred campaign. Teresa Woodard has been with them in Dallas all night. Teresa, that news just now going into the Allred campaign with ABC calling the race, a crowded race of Democrats, 9 of them running for the nomination to face Ted Cruz in November. And this is not a race that a lot of people predicted, where Colin Allred would win it outright by the numbers he is.
Absolutely, Jason. I think that word has not yet trickled down to all of the people who were here. I'm looking at my watch, 9:13 right now. 9:07 is when we got word from ABC that they were calling this race. But we did just get word from the campaign that the congressman himself should be out here within the next 15 minutes or so. That will no doubt energize this crowd. But you said it. That is the truth. I don't think anybody came into this night prepared for it to go this way, where it wasn't, a nail biter to avoid a runoff. It certainly appears as though Colin Allred has gotten, a way higher percentage of the vote that I think anybody thought he would get. And we've talked about this a couple of times throughout the night. Colin Allred has a recognizable name in DFW. He's been a congressman since 2018. He was a pro football player. He was an NFL player. He grew up here in Dallas. He was class president of Hillcrest High School, played for Baylor, went on to play for the Tennessee Titans, had an injury while he was playing against the Cowboys. That ended his career. He went on to become a civil rights attorney, and that's how he rose through the ranks of politics. But again, he's been in an elected position in DFW since 2018, so you can understand that people in North Texas would know his name. But the question was, what kind of statewide recognition would he have? Would he be able to get people down in the Valley, in El Paso, in San Antonio to vote for him when you have a strong state senator like Roland Gutierrez in this race as well, when people in that area, Uvalde and San Antonio, know him so well because that's where he is represented. But again, it seems as though Colin Allred has certainly outperformed the projections. We did see a UT poll within the last couple of weeks that said it looked like he could win this outright without a runoff, and that is where we are headed tonight, as ABC has just called this race for Colin Allred just about 7 minutes ago. Jason?
Teresa, I see people in the background here. State Rep Chris Turner, you interviewed a moment ago. Dallas County Judge Clay Jenkins, a number of prominent Democrats up here. You and I have covered politics for a long time in this state. What message does this send with so many Democrats in the race to have one of them this far out front early on?
Yeah, I think it just sends a message of optimism. And, I think what's going to be very interesting going forward from this night is, remember back in, it was 2020, or was it 2022, 2020? My years are off. The year that MJ Hagar and Royce West went to a runoff as they were facing off against John Cornyn. She never asked for Royce West's endorsement, and so I think that's going to be really key to see what goes on from here. Does Allred sort of make the rounds with his challengers and ask for all of their endorsements to sort of unify that Democratic field?
Yeah, indeed so. Teresa, thanks for the insight. Good work tonight there as well. We understand that Roland Gutierrez is coming back out like he promised about 30, 45 minutes ago to talk to his supporters in San Antonio. When he gets up to the lectern there, we will go to that shot and hear what he has to say tonight. But ABC News, Bernadine's calling this for Colin Allred. Clearly a good start for Democrats in this race to try and replace Ted Cruz in November.
And it's also good for Democrats in terms of he's at the top of the ticket other than Biden, because he's going to bring out the voters. I think that he has shown that he does have the grassroots, he does have the structure, and he's going to be able to turn out the votes that are needed. And then if you look at Cruz, you had names that we don't even know who pulled out over 100,000 votes. So I think Cruz is definitely looking at this election and knows that he's going to have to do a lot more than he has done in the past in terms of going out and actively campaigning and crossing over.
Well, we now know Rufus in red with 120,000 votes statewide. But Crystal, let me ask you, because I know you want to make a point. Bud said something a moment ago that makes total sense. This is a presidential election year. This is still Trump country. Either way, Allred was going to have an uphill climb regardless. But how much harder is that going to be for him come November?
Well, when we look at the 20 election, we saw a huge Trump turnout that was completely unexpected on the Democratic side. We had 11 million voters, and that we'd never had anything that high. So it could be high. I don't think the enthusiasm is quite the same as it was in 20. However, one thing I'd say about the Allred race is he is much more in the moderate camp, and he's going to present himself as the reasonable alternative to Ted Cruz, juxtaposed to a much more progressive Beto O'Rourke back in 18. So I it could be interesting.
Yeah, the earliest ad that came out from the PAC supporting Cruz said, Democrats picked the most radical recruit they could get in Colin Allred. I would not call Colin Allred a radical Democrat or progressive at all, Bud.
Jason, I just think I want a countdown clock right now on how soon it is that we see the first national headline that says, "Is Texas turning blue?" I think that's that's
every 4 years we have this conversation.
This kind of result, will just further that conversation. Money will pour in, but this is not an election that's set up for a Democrat to win. And the Democratic Party in Texas does not look as effective as it did the last cycle.
Let's go to some new numbers here and talk about these that have come in. This is House District 91. It's a Republican race in Fort Worth, and Stephanie Click, the incumbent there, with 85% of the precincts reporting, she is going into a runoff, it looks like, against David Lowe. And to me, that's surprising, Wade.
Yeah, like I said earlier, if you're the incumbent and you get pushed into a runoff, that's a problem. And so Stephanie can't feel good about that result. This was a race that Governor Abbott supported, endorsed her, and Paxton endorsed David Lowe. It's also, though, a race where David is running for a second time against Stephanie, so he's not new to the district. But it's certainly closer than she wanted or expected.
And the same last time. She did not get 50% last time. They were pushed into a runoff, and she was able to win by a wider margin in the runoff.
So what do you think about this time? This is a rematch, as Wade mentioned.
Well, this is actually a runoff rematch, but this is one race. Jason, we haven't even talked about all the misleading, deceptive advertising. This is one of the races where the advertising was all baloney. And just everything that arrived, and I mean, it made Stephanie Click sound like she was, the partners in some South American communist dictatorship or something. It just everything demonized her. And this is somebody who's been, one of the most conservative pro-life members of the House. But it wasn't enough for David Lowe, who is, somewhere on the further right of Stephanie Click.
Wow. Let's go to some more new numbers we have here. To take a look and see how things are really kind of settling. This is House District 108. This is still 7% reporting. This is Highland Park and North Dallas.
300 votes.
Incumbent is Morgan Meyer, and Barry Wernick is supported by Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, by a number of other state leaders. Morgan Meyer, of course, lieutenant of Dade Phelan, the House Speaker, and it's a close race there, but Morgan Meyer has survived, Bernadine, a lot of close races in the past.
Most of his races are close, and he ends up winning them. So we'll see what happens in this particular race, but he's in Dallas County.
Yeah.
And in order for him to have been able to hold on to his race, hold on to his seat in Dallas County is testament to how well he's in tune with that district.
And Crystal, when we think about that race, that's not, as Wade pointed out earlier, that's not a solid Republican district.
No,
that's more of a swing district. And what do you think about, I think Liz Ginsburg is the Democrat who is running for the first time to try to get the nomination on that side.
She is, and we have been targeting that district on the Dem side for several cycles now, and it's been very close in the last couple of cycles. And Liz has done a good job of getting out there, raising money, showing up, and so we'll see. It could be very
It makes
close.
it easier if it's an open seat
Yes.
on the Republican side.
Yeah, indeed so. Jason Wheeler hasn't been doing too much tonight, so let's check in with him to see what's going on. Jason, any more ballots being counted, man?
Yeah, I just pulled my feet off this desk over here as soon as you said my name there. You know, it's funny that you ask about those ballots being counted because it seems like we've been stuck for a little while here now with some of these, you know, major headline races that we've been watching tonight. I mean, I think all eyes have been on this District 21. If you know, just to orient you, this is Louisiana here in the black, and then down here you get into the Gulf of Mexico. This is in the very corner of Texas, southeast Texas there. And we're watching this so closely because Dade Phelan is the House Speaker, the Republican House Speaker, the incumbent, who right now is still 338 votes behind his challenger, who was, of course, endorsed by Attorney General Ken Paxton. It's been sitting at this for some time now. It looks like earlier it was estimated that I think we had more of the vote in this really friendly part of the district there for Dade Phelan. It looks like we still have some remaining out there, though. So we're going to keep on watching that to see what happens with that. I was just also looking at the other big headline of the night, I think, and that is the runaway for Colin Allred. Again, ABC News has called this race. You don't see it checked on here because we're looking at the Associated Press right now and the numbers that they've put out after looking at the Secretary of State's website and also all of the different election offices across the state. But you just keep seeing this update and you keep seeing this hover here around 62% for Colin Allred. And I think significantly, you know, we were talking earlier about how Roland Gutierrez, who is a state senator, was expected to pull a lot more vote down here in the valley. Keep in mind his district runs from Bexar County, which has gone Colin Allred's way in a big way so far this evening. Even Comal County there, same thing. But as you go off, this is a pretty wide district, but you know, Colin Allred picking off the edge of this district as well in Brewster County. It sort of hugs the border here. We haven't heard anything from Maverick County tonight. That's where Eagle Pass is. But Roland Gutierrez doing at least a little bit better there in Webb County, where you find Laredo, but still not pulling more than 50% of the vote. Kind of a surprise there, I think, tonight with what we've been seeing. One last thing as I send it over to you. Alicia Davis, we've been talking a lot about her. She's that third candidate in that Dade Phelan race, pulling more than 2,000 votes. I was checking her Twitter page, Jason. That number of votes is more than she has followers on Twitter. But I saw a Beaumont Enterprise report that said that she helps people to protest their property appraisals, which might explain some of her popularity there.
That makes sense why people might know her there. Let's
for free.
To some new numbers here for Dallas County Sheriff's race. This is the early vote reporting. The incumbent Marion Brown still ahead with 46% of the votes. Still, though, this is going into a runoff. Let's go to Sydney Persing now. She's been talking about Trump's performance nationally tonight, but we do finally have we do have some sound. We finally heard from the former president.
We did, Jason. Former President Trump actually is speaking as we speak at his watch party at Mar-a-Lago. He has been projected so far to win every single state in this primary. But in the first few seconds of his address tonight, he did not spend his time. He did not waste his breath on his primary opponent, Nikki Haley. Instead, he took aim at President Joe Biden.
Our poll numbers are so much higher than Joe Biden's. He's the worst president in the history of our country. There's never been anything like what's happening to our country.
And in the last few seconds here, we also got a statement from President Biden. He said, and I quote, "Tonight's results leave the American people with a clear choice. Are we going to keep moving forward, or will we allow Donald Trump to drag us backwards into the chaos, division, and darkness that defined his term in office?" No surprise to hear these two men going back and forth, Jason. As we've discussed, of course, this is primary night, but in this race specifically, so much talk already about the general election.
All right, Sydney, thanks for that insight. And of course, the general election is going to be the big deal come November tonight. A lot of folks are watching the local races here that are happening across the state. I believe we have some updated numbers for House District 26, Congressional seat number 26. This is the race to replace Michael Burgess in southeast part of DFW. Brandon Gill with 7 or 8 different challengers, I believe, Bud. This is a third of the vote in. He is still at 57%. He is way above Scott Army, the son of the former Congressman Dick Army, and John Huffman, who is the mayor of Southlake. So Brandon Gill could win this race, just like Julie Johnson and Colin Allred might be doing without a runoff, which really is kind of phenomenal considering the number of candidates in the races. Let's go to San Antonio now, where Morgan Young is covering the Roland Gutierrez campaign. Morgan?
Well, yeah, Jason, the energy here is starting to dial back just a bit. People are trickling out of this watch party, so kind of what's left here is just reporters, and we're really just waiting for the senator to address us. About maybe 45 minutes ago, he took to the podium here and he said, hey, it's going to be a long night. He obviously was watching those numbers, but he said that there are a lot of counties that hadn't been counted yet. He said there were a lot of counties in South Texas that hadn't been counted yet. He even made a joke. He said, I've got an update for you, and then he updated the Spurs and Rockets score, so that made people laugh. But, he really was just keeping hope alive there. Obviously, we know at this point that ABC has called this race for Colin Allred. He started to do one-on-one interviews with different stations, but said for now he's not going to address all the reporters as a whole. So we are waiting our turn, if you will, for the senator to come so we can ask him a couple of questions. And then there was kind of some rumblings that he might take to the stage to address us all at once in a few minutes once he's decided how to move forward at this point. So we're here, we're waiting to hear from him, and people are kind of moseying around just waiting to hear what he's got to say. Jason?
Morgan, thanks for that. We're of course waiting to hear from him. We're waiting to hear from Colin Allred as well. Krista, what does Gutierrez say, and what happens next politically for him?
Well, he should concede. He should throw his support behind Colin Allred and help us win in November. He's got a lot of people to keep happy. He can still press the issue of Uvalde, which has been his primary campaign position. Yeah. He can continue to talk about that and keep that subject alive, because it needs to be kept alive until we have a solution to those kinds of issues. But that's what he should do. Whether he will do is another.
Bernadine?
Absolutely, because if they're going to make any inroads in November, they need to be together, and the sooner the better. Because there's obviously no way for him to win at this point. So he needs to move on.
Bud?
Well, I mean, the main thing that I want to switch and talk about, inroads in November, with so many fringe right candidates winning in the Republican primaries and so many incumbents being defeated, 9 incumbents, maybe 10, 11, 12 when we get through runoffs. I have to wonder whether this opens the door for a couple of Democrats to win a couple of these seats.
Final word, Wade.
Texas is already far right, and that's not changing. You don't beat a Republican by being a Democrat. You beat a Republican by being a farther right Republican. If anything if we've learned anything tonight, it's that. And it doesn't change the fact that Colin Allred's a good-looking guy that speaks well. He's not going to win in November in a presidential year. It's just not going to happen. Now, we all need to, Ted Cruz needs to press the issue and raise the money and get the voters out, but it's not going to happen.
All right. We're going to wrap up our digital coverage here. Thanks for watching the stream tonight. We've been on since 6:45 watching the numbers and the results come in. A lot of surprises for us tonight, as Bud, Wade, Krista, and Bernadine have all talked about. We're waiting for Colin Allred to come out and speak to his supporters in Dallas. Here's a live picture of that. ABC News has called the race for Colin Allred. Allred, this is clearly the big winner in the biggest race of the night. He's defeated 8 different incumbents and avoided a runoff to become the Democratic nominee for U.S. Senate to face Ted Cruz in November. We're going to get ready for our 10 o'clock news in North Texas. So if you're in DFW with us and you're watching this, then please join us for that. And keep in mind, too, when we get done at 10 o'clock, I'm going to drag Wheeler back upstairs to our Y'all-a-Tick studio, and we're going to crack a beer and we're going to talk about what all happened tonight. Man, there's a lot to talk about, and the beer's in the fridge getting cold for that. So if you're going to sleep early tonight, you can wake up. You'll find that episode. Thanks for watching tonight.
All right, well, good evening, Texas. Listen, I just want to thank y'all so much for coming here. I mean this sincerely. Many of the folks in this room are responsible for me being in the United States Congress, and now you're going to be responsible for sending me and taking Texas in a totally different direction. And I want to thank you so much. I am so lucky to be here with my wonderful wife, Allie. You know, our boys are too little to be up this late, and they don't really know exactly what's going on. But I hope one day they watch this and understand, and I know I speak for Allie as well, that we're doing this for them. And for every Texas kid who deserves to have a senator who cares more about their future than his own. You know, I just got off the phone with Senator Roland Gutierrez. I want to thank him and all of my primary opponents for running a classy campaign on the issues. You made me a better candidate. You made this a better party. So thank you so much for being involved. Now, I'm a fourth-generation Texan. I was born and raised here in Dallas by a single mom who was a public school teacher. I went to school in Waco. My family's from Brownsville. I trained for the draft in Houston. I've served us in Congress now in my 6th year. And I can't tell you how much it means to me to be your nominee, to be the next senator from the great state of Texas. And while I will be the Democratic nominee, I want every Texan to know, whether you're a Democrat, an independent, or Republican, that I want you to be involved in this campaign. And I want to serve you in the United States Senate. Now, the truth is, the stakes really couldn't be any higher in this election. Our freedoms are under attack. We do have a crisis at the border that we have to respond to. Costs are still too high. We've had challenges before, and we'll have them again. But the fundamental reason that democracy works is that the people elect leaders to represent them and their interests, and to try to fix things for them, not to look out for themselves. We've had enough of that with Ted Cruz. It's time to go in a different direction. Our public servants should serve us, the public, not themselves or special interests. And there are public servants, and there's Ted Cruz. We all know who Ted is. When I was in the NFL, we had a term for guys like him. We called them me guys. They were always looking out for themselves. You know, in football, you got to work together. You got to find a way, even if you disagree or come from different backgrounds, to get things done. And when you have me guys on your team, it brings everybody down. There's too many me guys in D.C., but none as big as Ted Cruz. But in our democracy, we has always been more powerful than me. We, the people, we hold these truths to be self-evident. We shall overcome. Yes, we can. And we don't have to be embarrassed by our senator. We can get a new one. And that's what this is all about. We know that we can win with a campaign that draws on our history as Texans and charts a new and better path forward. We're going to work together to build a movement of Democrats and independents and Republicans that will defend our freedoms, fight for our democracy, make sure we have an economy that works for everyone, that secures our border consistent with our values, and we're going to make Roe v. Wade the law of the land again when I'm in the United States Senate. So that folks like Ted Cruz can't force Texas women to flee their own state to get the health care that they need. It's unacceptable. It's outrageous. Allie and I have been blessed with 2 baby boys here in Dallas in the last 5 years. I was at every ultrasound appointment, every genetic test. Those rooms are too small to have Ted Cruz in there when you're trying to make those decisions. It's funny, and it's not, because 26,000 Texas women have given birth to their rapist child since this law passed. We have counties saying you can't drive through the county if you're going to use the roads to access an abortion. How are they going to enforce that? You're going to start pulling women over and ask them, what's the nature of your travel, ma'am? Can I inquire as to your condition? Does that sound like freedom to anybody? I know it doesn't to me. Like I said, I'm about as Texas as you get. And there's one thing I know about us as Texans. It's that we believe in freedom. And that's what this election is going to be all about. Restoring our freedoms. This is my chance to say thank you to an entire community that helped raise me. Thank you. That's all. Because, you know, when you're raised by a single mom who's a public school teacher, and we don't pay our teachers enough, and she had to work, you know, sometimes 2 jobs to make ends meet, you rely on your community. You rely on your teachers and your coaches. For me, on my local YMCA, where I went so much, they started letting me come for free. People went above and beyond to give me a chance. And I don't forget that. It was because of them that I could chase my version of the American dream. It was because of them I got a chance to get a scholarship to play football at Baylor University, to go to the NFL, become a civil rights lawyer, to serve in the Obama administration, to serve y'all in Congress, and now to serve you, hopefully, in the United States Senate with God's grace. We've gotten a lot done together. I'm proud of being the most bipartisan member of the Texas delegation, not because bipartisanship in and of itself is the goal, but because getting things done is the goal. Because when you're raised by a single mom, you don't have time for theoretical ideas. We got to help folks. I think about the mom who's sitting there working 2 jobs like my mom was, and I know she's probably hoping her elected official is working as hard as she is. They're not just playing games. That when you see there's a crisis at the border and there's a bill to try and solve it, that you don't take it down because you want to have the problem to run on in November. That's not who we are as Texans. But it's too much of what we have had in D.C. Ted Cruz has had 12 years of pitting us against each other. It's time to have a senator who brings us back together. And that's what I'll do. Now, y'all know I'm a civil rights lawyer, so I have to talk about Dr. King. And he said that the ultimate measure of a leader isn't where they stand in moments of comfort and convenience, where they stand in the most challenging moments. We know where Ted Cruz stands when those moments come. When 30 million Texans are freezing in the dark, he decides to go to Cancun. When our democracy was under attack, he's hiding in a supply closet. After he was the one who whipped up the mob, we know where he stands. I want you to know that I will always stand with you. I will always put Texas first. I will always make sure that I'm keeping you in mind and not my own political future or any nonsense like that. We've had enough of that. We've had enough of me, guys. It's time to go back to believing in the power of we. We is much more powerful than me. We can do this together. We can have the country and the state that we know we are. We as Texans can rise up and on November 5th, send Ted Cruz packing. So with God's grace and with your help, with the folks in this room, folks watching at home, folks who I haven't had a chance to talk to in person yet. I want to ask you to believe not in me, but in yourself, in your own capacity to create change, in your ability to shape the country and the state that we all love. Previous generations of Americans have been tested. We're being tested right now. We're going to have an election that's going to be one of the most important in American history. Here in Texas, we're picking a senator who's going to serve us until 2030. And I think I know what's going to happen. The real Texas is going to come out. And then on November 5th, we're going to come together. We're going to send a strong message about who we really are. And folks out there might be surprised, but you shouldn't be. Because I know who we are. And we're not who Ted Cruz says we are. And we're so much better than this. And together, we're going to show it. Thank you so much.
How's everybody doing tonight? Good. Good. Well, Becky and I and the kids are glad to open our home for you tonight. I look across this great crowd of supporters, and I'm just so grateful for all of you. I'm going to keep my remarks very brief. I believe you've heard me say this before, that blessed are the brief in speech, for they shall be reelected. And tonight we've been reelected. And so we're still waiting for election results or election day results to come in, but through early voting and about 20% of election day, we're up with 66% of the vote tonight. I'm going to make my remarks very brief. There's a few people that I do want to recognize and thank. I want to thank our great Ray from Austin, who made these awesome street tacos tonight. The law enforcement who's here keeping us safe and secure tonight. Thank you to the Allen Police Department for being here. And I want to thank what I consider to be the best campaign team in all of Texas, Mitch Carney, Rocky Gage, Hannah Devine. I don't know where you are, but thank you so much for your great support. They're here tonight. And of course, without question, one of my dearest friends and the best, I've said this before, but I don't believe it, or I've never believed it stronger than tonight. Julie Atkinson, where are you, Julie? Julie Atkinson, the best campaign manager in all of Texas. And last but not least, my sweet family behind me. There's just no words to describe my heart of gratitude for Becky, for Brady, for Charlotte, and Landry. Normally, and this is true for candidates at all levels, it's very hard on us. You all know that, you could see that, but it's normally harder on our families, on our spouses and our children. But for me, I'm surrounded, behind me are four of the strongest, most resilient, loving, passionate people that I have in my life, and these are my fiercest supporters, and without them, we would not be celebrating a victory tonight. And so I love Becky, I love Brady, I love Charlotte, I love Landry, and I'm proud to be their husband and dad tonight. And of course, Franklin too, who's here tonight. So thank you guys. I love y'all. All right. So I want to say a couple remarks about what this means. This has, of course, been for the past several weeks, actually the past several months. It's been arduous. It's been hard. It's been very difficult. Yes, politically, but also personally. We feel like we've been under assault and ambush for quite some time. We have, since day one of this campaign, tried to be and committed ourselves to being positive, aspirational, honest with our voters, talking about the good and the bad, sharing very clearly where we are in the state of Texas, what we've accomplished, and what we still have left to do. And despite an onslaught of what we felt like at many times was just flat-out deception and lies, we were committed as a team to connecting with our voters, not necessarily speaking to them, although we did a lot of that, but listening to them. And I'm proud tonight. I don't know about you tonight, but I'm very proud to be an American tonight. Yeah, and when candidates here in the state of Texas are talking left and right about leaving the United States and giving up on the promise of America and fleeing from the American dream, tonight more than ever, I feel like it's time to double down on it. And I'm hopeful for our country. I'm proud to be a Texan tonight. I hope you are as well. Texas is the envy of the nation. We have a lot to be proud of. We have a lot of work to do. But under our governor, Greg Abbott, who I was grateful to have his support, we are excelling. We're doing very well, and I'm very grateful for that work and those achievements. But tonight, I'm also really, really proud to be a Republican. And yeah, a real Republican. I don't know. Someone needs to tell me. For the last 5 months, I've been called a rhino. And I don't know what you called a rhino who just got 66% of the vote. And I'm grateful that we did that with that positive, honest message, focusing on our voters, not on distractions. But I want to close with two quick things. Last week, a couple, I was standing at the polls greeting voters here in Allen, and there was an elderly couple that I saw walking up from a distance. They parked far away. They could have parked close by in the handicap parking, but they didn't. They walked up hand in hand, and if you told me that they were 100 years old, I would believe you. And they walked up to me. They made a beeline directly to me, and they grabbed my hand, and they looked me in the eye, and they said, "We want you to know, Representative Leech, that we voted together, hand in hand, in every Republican primary since the 1950s. They voted for Nixon. They voted for Ford. They voted for Reagan. They voted for Bush. They voted for Dole. They voted for George W. Bush. They voted for John McCain. They voted for Mitt Romney. They voted for Donald Trump. They've been Republicans all their life. And they told me that they've never been more proud to support a Republican ticket, Republican incumbents from President Trump down to Senator Cruz. And they told me, and they looked me in the eyes, and in fact, the man had actually tears in his eyes. He said, "I want you to know, they live here in our neighborhood." He said, "I want you to know I'm proud to support you, our state representative." And I was so grateful to have their support. And shortly thereafter, that same day, no joke, I called Becky and told her right when it happened. The polls were about to close. It was 6:30 in the evening. The sun was setting. It had been a long day. And I was starting to pack up. And I had felt this grab on my arm. And it was this young woman in her 20s. And she was wearing a burqa. And she proceeded to tell me, she looked me in the eyes. She, like they did, she held onto my hand. And she said, "I want you to know, Representative Leech, that my family has lived here for 80 years in the United States." And they said, "And we have never, ever voted for a Republican until you." And I want you to know that tonight, I am really proud to be a Republican who believes in opportunity, who believes in the rule of law, who still believes in the American dream. And I am a Republican for that old couple who's been voting Republican for 80 years, and for that new Muslim family, that new family that lives in our district that may not agree with me on everything, but that believes in the American dream. I believe that the Republican Party should be home to all of them. Amen. To all of them. And we don't abandon our values. We don't run from our principles. We stand firm, but we do so with kindness and with love. We do so with boldness. And what I learned from this election is that hatred doesn't win. That you can still do the right thing in the right way, and it works, and it still wins. And so we're only halfway there. We have a Democrat opponent in November, and I'm confident that we're going to win in November. But let me just tell you this: as I look upon this group here tonight, I'm so grateful for you, because I see a group of Republicans tonight, Republicans that believe the same thing, and I hope you do. Because I'm in the business of wanting to grow the Republican Party and wanting to reestablish and reinvigorate Republican Party, and I hope you are too. The days of hatred and bigotry and all the nastiness and all the lies and all the deceit, put it away. We believe in the promise of America and freedom and liberty and in the rule of law and opportunity for every single American. Amen? Amen. And so I thank you all for your support. I'm proud to be your state representative. We are humbled and honored to serve you, and the best days are still ahead. Thank you so much for your support, and thanks for being here tonight. Thank you. Thank you. I love you a lot.
coming here. Are we ready to take this country back? It is an absolute honor to be the Republican nominee for U.S. Congress from Texas's 26th Congressional District. It has been an absolute wild 3 months, and I couldn't thank you guys enough for everything you guys have done, everything everybody up here on stage with me has done over the past few months. Thank you guys so much. you guys have heard from me quite a few times, most of you, but I grew up not far from here on a cattle ranch, despite what you may have heard in the mail, outside of Abilene, Texas. We raised Angus and Brangus beef cows. I grew up with about 300 head of cows, 4 dogs, and a donkey named Barack. And that's exactly right. I had a brief career in finance and literally lived the American dream, coming from a cattle ranch in West Texas to one of the most successful investment funds in the world. And I walked away from that so that I could get back into the conservative media fight. I started a news outlet called DC Inquirer, which I started specifically to defend President Trump in the public sphere. When I wasn't doing that, I worked on a movie called 2,000 Mules, which is exposing election fraud in the 2020 election. And last fall, I was the executive producer of a movie called Police State, which traces how the federal government has been weaponized against conservatives and Christians. I've been on the front lines of conservative media for years now, and now we're ready to take the fight straight to the swamp in Washington. We've got so much work that needs to be done to stop what Joe Biden is doing to this country. We cannot survive another 4 years of Joe Biden. We've got open borders, we've got an economy that is heading off of a fiscal cliff, and we've got sickos putting dirty books in our little children's schools, and it's got to end today. And we are gonna fight to end this. But before we go there, I wanna say thank you to so many people who have helped us out along the way. I want to thank President Trump for endorsing me in this campaign. I'd like to thank Senator Ted Cruz for endorsing me as well. To the House Freedom Caucus, to Jim Jordan and Mark Meadows, and Corey Mills and Matt Gaetz, and some of our best conservative fighters. There are many, many more that we can't mention here. I want to say thank you guys so much for being behind us every step of the way in this campaign, and I cannot wait to get to Washington and join some of the best, most hardcore conservative fighters we have there. But most importantly, I'd like to thank my beautiful wife here, and little Marigold. Yes, it is way past Marigold. Yes, my wife and I live in Flower Mound, not far from here, and love to call Texas 26 home, where we've got roots, and Little Marigold, where Little Marigold is going to grow up. I'd also like to thank my parents, my mom and my dad up here. They have spent the past several months constantly block walking, meeting with as many voters as they possibly can, and in the midst of the hand-to-hand combat at the polls over the past 2 weeks, many of you guys have also been there as well. I'd like to thank Dinesh and Debbie as well for coming here, who've given us guidance every step of the way and has helped us out in so many different ways, so thank you all as well. And also to my campaign manager, Andrew Leppert, who is right there, an absolutely brilliant campaign strategist, who has run, I think it's fair to say, a flawless campaign. So thank you so much, Andrew. And as well to Ryan Gerdusky and Nick Maddox, who's not here as well, our consultants, who have done a phenomenal job carrying us through this. There's so many more, all of you guys who have been so good to us, and I really, really appreciate it. And we're also, of course, thankful to Christ, who has taken us through such an intense 2 months, especially the past 3 weeks, as we have just been bombarded. Which reminds me, another message we need to make sure gets sent out to the DC Swamp Super PACs, who spent millions and millions of dollars trying to lie and slander about me. The people of Texas 26 can see through your lies because Texas 26 is Trump country. We've got so much that needs to be done in Washington. We've got to secure the border. We've got to deport the illegal aliens Joe Biden brought into this country. We've got to stop reckless spending, and we have got to fight back against the left's disgusting social agenda that they're pushing down our throats right now. In other words, we have got to take this country back from the left, and we absolutely will. So thank you guys so much for being here again. Thank you, Danielle and Marigold and Mom and Dad and Dinesh and Debbie and everybody who worked on the campaign. It's been a wild ride, and it is an absolute honor to be the Republican nominee for Texas's 26th Congressional District. Thank you guys so much for coming out here. We appreciate it.
All right, can everybody hear me okay? I want to thank you all for coming out tonight. It has been a wonderful evening here, and the last 8 months have been an incredible journey for me. Indeed, the last 2 years have been an incredible journey because I got to meet some of the greatest people of my life and these families from Uvalde, Texas. I love them, and I love all of my friends in Uvalde, each and every parent that lost a child, families that lost 2 wonderful teachers that died trying to protect their children. I stopped crying about elections a long time ago, so you won't see me cry over that spilt milk. We've got a fight that's still yet to go in this state, and we're going to make sure we do that. But I cry every day over their children. That's a conversation that we need to have. About 5 minutes ago, I called the congressman to congratulate him. We got to give him that. He worked hard. We got to give him his due. And so we called to concede this thing today. But I also asked him to understand how important this issue is in this state and in this nation. So many of you have said that we're just running on gun violence. Indeed, we're running on so many things that are broken in this state. And yes, the principal reason for my running was these families behind me and their children. And I'm telling you right here, right now, just like I talked to the congressman earlier, we need an assault weapons ban in this country. So as the congressman moves forward, I hope that he understands that that issue is so important to even all South Texans that own guns like myself, that we need to have extreme risk protective orders and universal background checks and age limits and absolutely this assault weapons ban, because this is a weapon of war that should not be in our schools and should not be sold to 18-year-olds under no certain terms. But we're broken on everything. I ran into a woman today, and her name was Tammy, over at Maury Maverick School. I said, "How are you doing?" She says, "Not so good. I lost my nephew yesterday." I said, "Well, what happened? Tell me about it." She said, "I lost him in a fire in the Panhandle." Imagine this, a woman in San Antonio, Texas, telling me that she lost her volunteer firefighter nephew who left behind 3 kids just yesterday in the fires in the Panhandle. His name was Zeb Smith. I didn't know this woman from nothing. That's how broken we are in this state, because Republicans have made decisions for us and they've prioritized certain things. The whole Panhandle is on fire, and we don't even own one damn fire retardant plane in this state. That is the state that Greg Abbott and Ted Cruz and Donald Trump would rather have us living in. They have screwed us over on just about everything, just like they screwed over these families. Just like those cops stayed out there for 77 minutes because they were afraid of a gun. We're absolutely broken on these issues. Just like we're broken because Kate Cox had to flee this state just to get reproductive freedom, just to save her own life. We are broken in this state. We are broken in this state when we have an attorney general who is nothing but a crook. Nothing but a crook. And he sits there while he gave these families $1,000 for their pain and suffering, less than any other mass shooting in this state. We are broken on so many things. And as we sat and drove throughout this state and talked to people like Antonia Molina in Harlingen, Texas, who's sitting in a small shack, a small home, a humble home, on Social Security of $762. This governor sits in his mansion while he plays his toy soldier game down in Eagle Pass, Texas, trying to convince the world that we're in chaos, along with his friend Donald Trump. This morning, Donald Trump, just yesterday, he says they speak some language from outer space. It's Spanish, asshole. It's just Spanish. And my parents were immigrants to this country. They were immigrants to this country that came from nothing but a third-grade education my father had. And he told me, son, you're going to educate yourself, because they can take away everything from you, but they'll never take away your education. That's what this race is about. It's about the fact that we are all in pain in this country. We are all in pain in this state. It's the pain of these parents, and it's never going to go away. But they're never going to stop advocating for their kids, and they're never going to stop advocating for your kids at home, because they never want you to go over through the pain that they've had to go through. It's the pain of Kate Cox and every other young lady that's looking for reproductive freedom. It's the pain of a child that's just trying to get through college and pay for it and not be choked by insurmountable debt. It's the pain of just trying to pay your mortgage. People aren't looking for a handout. They're looking for a hand up. They're looking for a chance. And that's what this race was about. It was about progressive values and progressive ideas that said nothing about Democrat or Republican values, but human values. That's what this race is about. And so we have to call on everybody out there listening across this country, on our better angels, because there's a real son of a bitch out there, and his name is Donald Trump.
Yeah, that's right.
And there's another son of a bitch named Ted Cruz. When I tweeted the other day about our state being broken, he said, well, that's the kind of campaign that our state is broken. Yeah, you broke it, you son of a bitch, but we're not defeated. We are not defeated in this state, and we're not defeated in this country. And we must not allow ourselves, not for 1 minute or for 1 second, to accept their narrative, their false narrative, that there's chaos on the border each and every day. I promise you folks in the United States, I represent 400 miles of this border. Laredo's just fine. McAllen and Farr and Brownsville, they're just fine. El Paso's just fine. Del Rio's just fine. But we have a small town in Eagle Pass, Texas, that looks like a movie theater set for an invasion. The vast majority of most days, no one's coming across. But this feeble-minded governor convinced you all that we're in some kind of chaotic situation. Look, this is a country of migrants. It's a country that was built on migrants. It's a country like my father, Vinton Gutierrez, like my stepmom who raised me, Berta Gutierrez. They came here with nothing on their backs and made everything happen. And allowed a son to put himself through college and put himself through law school and make it to city council in this great city, and make it to the state house, and make it to the state senate, and today sat before you on the last day of his United States Senate run. But I promise you here right now that my fight against Ted Cruz isn't over, and my fight against Donald Trump isn't over, and my fight against these Republicans isn't over, because folks, they don't give one damn red cent about you. The only thing they care about is money and power. And so for every one of you out back home across this nation that think that the Republican Party has your back, think twice, read a book, read a newspaper, and maybe then you'll realize, maybe then for a second you'll realize that you were lied to and you were screwed over. And if you're in rural Texas, by God, you've been screwed over more than most. Because the fact is, we can do so much better. And so tonight we congratulate the congressman, and we'll work with him down the road. We'll have some conversations. But I want to thank you all for coming. It has been an amazing journey. But as I told you earlier, this race was never about me. This race was about Lexi. It was about Tess. It was about Uzziah. It was about Jackie. It was about Rogelio and Jose. Eliana Torres. Eliana Garcia. Annabelle. It's about Maite. It's about Layla. About McKenna. It's about April. It's about Nevaeh. About Xavier. It's about Rogelio. It's about Irma. It's about Ava. About so many wonderful kids that lost their lives one fateful day. Like I told you, I don't cry about elections. It was about Jace, it was about Jayla. But I'll forever cry about these children because I saw every bit of it. I'll never take those images out of my mind. I want each one of you back home, across this country, just for 1 second, just for a moment, to put yourselves in the shoes of these families. And think to yourselves what you would do if you sent your little kid to school and all of a sudden, in a minute, they were gone and they never came back. I want you to ask yourselves that. You're damn right, we're going to keep fighting for those kids from here and forever. I thank you all for coming out tonight. I appreciate you.